Okay, I already hit it. So.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Horror Rumble. And tonight we have a little surprise. We kind of left it alone because it is sort of our Horror Rumble holiday episode this month, being December with Christmas coming up. And actually, tonight, for those who celebrate, is the first night of Hanukkah.
Hanukkah.
So, Hanukkah.
Hanukkah.
No. So happy holidays to you all. Do you want to explain sort of why this is a surprise, Kory? I mean, we're about ready to announce what franchise we're doing.
Like you said, it's the holidays, kind of like a Christmas present, just kind of thought it'd be fun to not actually put what we were doing out there before we did the show. So like I said, it's kind of like a Christmas present. So if you do like the franchise that we're going to talk about tonight, then great. If you don't, then they explain to us why in the chat. I mean, that's the whole point of this show, is to debate and argue in a fun way and just have fun. So,
well, excellent. Real quick, we'll just say hi to the folks that are here joining us in the chat and have been waiting patiently. So thank you.
Very patient.
We got good friend Ben Grimm.
What's up, Ben?
Hey there, brother. Our other good friend from across the seas, Mr. Sean McManus. I won't even try to do the accent. Big T, always there for us. Good buddy.
Big T,
good
what's
evening.
Up?
Thanks for coming. And of course, new, but also a regular in the community, Miss Jessica from Manifesting Fear.
What's up, Jessica?
And did I leave anybody out so far?
I think we got everybody. I think we did.
Well, let's start bringing on our entrants tonight. And for the first time, we have a new one coming on. Excited for this one. I've been trying to get him on for a while now. Let me just click over. Are you ready?
Yeah, that's good.
Dun-dun-dun-dun. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Cole from Jet Silver Avenger.
What's up?
How you doing,
man? Some suspense there. It's really not warranted, but to those that had to wait because we were late, that's my bad. It's my fault we're late. So,
yeah, we usually run late anyway. I love it. Well, and I got your Jet Silver Avenger is your channel, and you also have the movie discussion Pocket Dimension, which we'll plug at the end as well.
It's Jay the Stingray.
With Jay the Stingray,
I know a lot of the folks watching are familiar with.
Very much so. And hanging in the wings as well. Been on the show before. We have Andrew from Hey, Isn't That Devon Graham? Hello, sir. Or maybe he'll be with us in a moment.
AFK.
Can y'all hear me? Sorry. Can y'all hear me?
I can now.
Good.
How you doing, Andrew?
Hello?
Good to see you. Kind of.
Can y'all hear me?
A slight delay.
Yeah, we can hear you, Andrew.
Yeah.
I think there might be a delay or a lag or something.
Yeah, a little bit of a connection issue or something. I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm having those as well, so bear with me.
Okay, I'm going to say one, then as soon as you hear one, say two.
I have not. Did he say it? Are you messing with me?
Wait, did you? No. Did y'all hear me say one?
We heard this part that you were going to say one and we were to say two, and then there was nothing. I think we're good. We'll carry on.
Oh.
He'll be back.
One.
He'll be back.
Okay.
Well, should we no, hold on.
That's not fair, Ben. It's called time zones. I'm affected by time zones, as we all are. I'm out in the friggin' Atlantic Ocean here.
Yes, I believe that is AST.
That's true. The little-known Atlantic Standard Time.
Oh, I think some of these guys know you, Cole, so because they're giving you shit like they do.
It's good.
All right, I'm sure Andrew will be back in a minute. Shall we go ahead and get started and let these fine folks know what they've been waiting for, unwrap their gift?
Sure.
All right, the franchise is The Prophecy. Christopher Walken. I'm not going to do a bad impression. I promise. Well,
there are no bad impressions.
No,
I've liked every Christopher Walken impression I've ever heard. They all land for me. I'm like, that's it. That's it.
Got one, Cole?
I have to warm up to a little further on. You know, I have to psych myself up. I can't just jump into it. I'm not that talented. But
okay.
If I give
same here. I end up sounding like John Travolta.
Yeah, it's the same thing with accents. Like usually I can do an accent, but I can't sustain it. After like several sentences, it devolves into Australian. No matter what I'm doing, it eventually turns into Australian. I can do Russian, and eventually I sound like, you know, it's I don't know, not that talented.
All right, this should be
much better. This again.
How about now, guys?
Yeah.
Well, we just told the fine folks we're doing The Prophecy, so we'll go ahead and do get ready on the first film. I'll start us off. I got to say, it's been a while since I visited these.
Most definitely.
You got The Prophecy, the first film. Of course, Christopher Walken is the Archangel Gabriel. He's coming down to Earth to cause some havoc. You got Eric Stoltz there. You got Elias
Koteas.
Thank you. I can never pronounce his last name.
Casey Jones. Just say it's Casey Jones.
Casey Jones. Has
the great
Thomas Daggett.
Yes, that's right. Thomas Daggett.
Okay. Hey.
That's pretty good. That's better.
I did some
memory than I was
research to
expecting.
refresh
myself.
Okay. So I'm cheating. But it's actually got a pretty decent cast in this. You got Virginia Madsen, Viggo Mortensen. And anyway, you know,
you say
Gabriel
Virginia
comes
Madison?
down.
Madsen.
Did I sound like I said Madison?
Yes,
you did.
Oh, God.
Cardinal sin.
It is. It is very much so.
Unforgivable.
A few years after.
At least it wasn't Michael. That would have been really bad.
Mm.
But great cast. I guess I don't need to give away too much, but my experience with it was probably late 90s, very early 2000s. My cousin Josh and we've gone through all the standard franchises. We hadn't really watched them together, getting into the horror franchises, and we finished them. And he's like, "Well, what are we watching next?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm damn near out of ideas." And he's like, "Well." So we go to Blockbuster, and he's like, "Have you ever seen The Prophecy?" Because we like Christopher Walken. I was like, "No, let's give it a chance." So we watched the first one. Actually enjoyed it pretty well, as far as I remember, and which led us to watching the others, which we'll get to. But it was nothing that I was like, "Oh my gosh, this ranks right up there with Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street" to me, but it was a solid horror film, and obviously good enough for us to continue on in the series. I don't know. What are the rest of you guys' thoughts on, especially the first movie?
Jess,
I think it's probably the best. Okay.
When you did watch the first one, how far into the franchise were they?
Three
Three.
movies.
So okay, so you didn't watch 4 and 5 at that point. It was
I had no, and
Okay.
we'll get to that too.
all right. I was just curious.
The three movies were out. Well, what? Yeah, because the Prophecy 3. So it was after 2000. Then it wasn't the late 90s. So it would have been probably no later than 2001. So the Prophecy 3 was not that old when we did this, because we did those three all at once.
It's still
like
not
within
that
a
old.
week.
98 was not that long ago. Damn it. We are not that old, Jess.
Keep telling yourself
We're pushing
that.
25
keep
years
trying.
on 98.
You know, yesterday, guys, I got a new guitar, and it's from 2001. And when I first saw that, I was like, well, it's not really anything too vintage, but I realized that's 21 years ago. That's pretty crazy.
Yes, sir.
Oh my God.
It is depressing.
And very close to 22.
It was just a year ago.
ago.
What
Yeah.
are you talking about? I am not that old, damn it.
You are, sir. You may be the
just
oldest one here.
I think I
tonight.
am.
If you're older than Jess, you're older than me.
But I still look damn good for 42, damn it. At least I
Absolutely.
keep telling myself that. So my wife says otherwise. Trying to continue on with what Jess was talking about with the cast. It also has Amanda Plummer, who was in
Just
Pulp
gonna
Fiction.
mention
and
that. Yeah.
So I Married an Axe Murderer, and Adam Goldberg's in it.
Adam Goldberg's great in it.
I love Adam Goldberg. I forgot about him being in it.
This is the first thing I saw him in for sure.
I think the first thing I saw him in was Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, I mean, I know that predates this movie, but I'm not sure of the timeline of when I saw Dazed and Confused. Because unlike Jess, I saw this movie when it was reasonably new on video, so maybe sometime in 96 or early 97, I'd say. And that was around the time I first saw Dazed and Confused. I know Dazed and Confused had a 93 release, but I didn't see it right away, so I'm not sure.
There was one other guy that's in the first one. He's actually in the first three, and that's Steve Hittner. I think I'm saying that right. I have no clue what I've seen him in, but I know I recognize him from something else.
Yeah.
So, and I think he's absolutely great as the coroner in all three movies. So,
Steve,
for what it's
he's
worth, I mean, it's just a small role, but I mean,
he's Kenny Banya in Seinfeld.
he's what?
He's Kenny Banya in Seinfeld, the comedian.
That's the other comedian that Jerry was always really annoyed by. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, that's who he is.
As far as the movie itself, it's a great movie. I love this movie. I love the first three movies, but this one here is definitely the better of all the movies in the franchise. But it's not without its faults. Like there's definitely at least one part in there that's really cringy, and that's that real like broken up moment where Virginia Madsen's yelling at Christopher Walken saying you can't have her, which I always thought was really cringy. But other than that, I don't really have any problems with the movie. I think as short as the time that Viggo Mortensen's in this movie, nobody else can play the devil as far as I'm concerned. He is the devil, and he can play the devil in any movie he wants to, as long as he plays it like he did in this movie. He's just absolutely badass as the devil in it. I've seen the movie at least a dozen times, and I always end up letting it play through the credits. I'll like get up, take out my bag of popcorn or go grab a new pop or something. But I let the credits play, and there's the first song, or I think it might be the only song that plays during the credits. But I've never actually stopped and listened to the whole song. I just always thought it was kind of this is kind of neat. I kind of like this. The last time I rewatched this, which was Wednesday night, I actually stopped and listened to the song and waited.
Skid Row, right?
Huh?
Skid Row, isn't it?
Yeah, but I didn't know that at the time. I'm a huge 80s rock fan. I love Skid Row. But it sounds nothing like that.
You
listen to the song Breaking Down, which is the song that plays during the credits. and you go listen to 18 in Life or anything off of Slave to the Grind, it doesn't sound anything like them.
No, this sounds a lot more 90s alternative.
Yeah,
right?
it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
But and it's not, I don't even think it's like a great song or anything. It's just, it's a nice song. I like the song and ended up listening to it for 2.5 hours straight the next day.
Huh.
It fits the
Or-
movie. I think.
Keep in mind, I
was.
was at work too. So it's just, I put it on that one song and let it loop, and I was busy. So, but I didn't know it was Skid Row. I mean, I kind of feel bad because almost feel like a poser because I'm a huge 80s rock fan and I didn't know that was Skid Row playing. There's a line in the movie where Thomas is talking and he says, even now in heaven, there were angels carrying savage weapons. And he claims that's actually in the Bible, but it's not. I couldn't find exactly where they think it came from, but apparently it could possibly come from an apocrypha gospel, or an apocrypha book, which is non-canon. But other than that, like, I love this movie. This movie is it kind of falls into that same category because I believe it's within that same few years of like The Crow and kind of those other Dimension films that just, they all kind of have that same feel to me. I mean, I maybe I'm the only one. I don't know. Nobody
No,
said.
No.
I agree.
We
But-
have a lot in common, it seems, because I'm not big on the franchise, but I love the first movie, and I've also seen it many times. I own an old DVD of it that I watch, but and it's hard to remember my initial thoughts on it, my initial reaction. I don't think I thought I loved it at the time, but it was just something I returned to. It felt very familiar. It is my favorite Christopher Walken performance, even though he's had such a crazy career with so many things. It is. That's my favorite thing seeing Christopher Walken do is play Gabriel with all his weird line deliveries and his perching and his weird poses and stuff. And I agree with you too about.
Face, I was like, really, out of all his performances.
Yeah. And I agree
Christopher
with
Walken's a
I'm
badass
big
in
on-
these movies.
Yeah. And he has so many awesome lines. Just, I don't know. So we have a lot in common there. And it's funny you say The Crow. The Crow's another one that we're like, I adore the first movie, but I wish none of the sequels even existed. Is one of those. But
We'll get to the Crow movies at another time, but I definitely want to say that the sequels aren't nearly as, in my opinion, as bad as a lot of other people think. So
We'll have to keep Cole in mind for that franchise,
Oh, yeah.
though. Make sure we can schedule.
for that, I'll
Yeah,
try to
we get-
rewatch them, but they actually hurt me. They really hurt me, those sequels.
Well, that'll be great because, like Kory tries to tell everybody many times, we want you on here if you hate the movies too. So it's a rumble in a way.
Oh, you
Yeah,
don't
we
want to let
want the
me
debate.
on for things I hate.
we encourage the
I've
debate.
kind of closed that chapter because way back, people remember the Sausage Factory back in the day. I was on that show, and I didn't mean for it to happen, but I kind of became the negative one that hated stuff and tore things apart. And I really wanted to get away from that sort of persona and thing. I think it kind of got out of hand at some point. So, yeah, in the years since, I've tried to like restrain myself when stuff comes on that I hate. I mean, I'll still talk about it and stuff, but I don't want to get carried away. So I don't know. Be careful.
Well, this
Careful,
channel
y'all.
encourages that. Like I just said,
Yeah.
it's the horror rumble. If we just brought everybody on here and we all love the exact same movies of
Sure,
each
yeah.
franchise, wouldn't be any
Oh, I
fun to
know.
listen to it.
That's true. I mean, I wasn't like resorting to like personal attacks or anything. I just mean, I think I probably overdid it sometimes in expressing my hatred for certain movies and things. And yeah,
Well, I loved you on the Sausage Factory, so
thanks very much.
Andrew, you got any comments about the first one? Anything you
It's been-
remember about the first one?
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it, but pretty much like the last thing you said there is like why it appeals to me. I like those mid-90s kind of Dimension films and stuff like that, like right around the time The Craft came out and stuff. So aesthetically, I really like it. I love the cast here. Like you mentioned, Amanda Plummer. I love her. I love Christopher Walken, and this is definitely one of my favorite roles of his. This isn't like an iconic role of his or anything, but I think I always just go to Joe Dirt when I think of him because I love him in that movie so much. But it's not to say that's his best role, but that might be my favorite role of his. But this is great too.
It's the round town. It's all round. Do it again. Stab you in the face with a soldering iron.
Exactly that.
That's why.
That was better than I was expecting. So now I don't think I should do mine. Mine would fail in comparison, I think.
But I love Viggo Mortensen. Obviously, is a big Lord of the Rings fan, so I always enjoy seeing him outside of Lord of the Rings. He's a great actor, and he's great here too. And Virginia Madsen's always great. I don't think I'm as cringed as Kory is about her performance in that part. I think I just find it more fun, endearing. I don't know. I like the cheesy stuff though. But if it makes you feel better, Kory, I didn't know that was a Skid Row song either.
Thank you. It doesn't sound anything like that.
And I was just listening to Skid Row last night, so yeah, I didn't know that either.
I just knew it because I'm a fan of the movie. I didn't really know it because of any association with the band. I don't know. I've seen the movie so many times. I have heard the song so many times. I'm aware it's not like what their normal sound is. I just knew. So, yeah.
But to my knowledge, I believe it's off of the humanoid sub something album. It's like their third album. I've never listened to it because I just never got around to listening to it. I mean, their self-titled album "Enslaved to the Grind" are just so awesome. I mainly stick to that stuff. But that's it. I knew it was Subhuman something.
Oh man, it's produced by Bob Rock. What didn't he produce back then? Jesus. Sorry.
Poison. He did not produce a Poison album.
There you go. He seemed to check all the other boxes.
But there was something else I was going to say.
Sorry, I kind of derailed you.
No, you're fine. Eric Stoltz plays the angel Simon in the first one, and I'm sure by now, if anybody that has seen it knows, Simon dies in the first one. Spoiler, whatever. But keep that in mind later on.
You have to say spoiler alert before you give it away.
Oh, is that how it works? Oh, well,
yeah.
Shit
on
on
much
me.
of an alert.
Really, you shouldn't be watching. I mean, unless if you really know you're not going to watch these or don't care. You probably shouldn't watch us talking about movies unless you've at least seen them. But then again, maybe
I disagree. I disagree. Watch us, and hopefully it makes you want to go and watch these movies.
That's a good point too. I was just going to say that too. Maybe it will inspire you on something that you would normally not pick out for yourself. So I take that back.
There is one other thing I want to bring up before we move on to the next one, and that is that this franchise actually mixes two things that I absolutely love, and that's horror and eschatology. Yeah, none of this stuff in here is actual biblical eschatology, but for those that don't know, eschatology is the study of end times, end of the world, whatnot. And while, like I was saying, none of this is actually biblical eschatology, but it's still really cool to me. So I think that's part of the reason why I like this franchise so much. So
nice. Jamie says the prophecy is awesome. Viggo is so scary as the devil. We were talking about that a little bit earlier, right before you came in, I think.
No one else should ever play the devil.
Very true. Any final thoughts?
Not even Lucifer himself. Fuck him.
Oh, okay. We're moving fast on thought. I don't know how to get final. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on the movie. I'm just thinking. I just love so many lines of the dialogue. I mean, there's just so many things they said. I love Gabriel's absolute contempt for humans and how we're just like monkeys and things like that. I love how he just perches places like I don't know, everything he does I think is great. I just find it so eminently watchable. I guess I can't do a million quotes, but I love the quote where he's like, where he says, that dent on your lip there, I put that there when I went shh, when you were born or whatever like that, and I went shh. Like stuff like that is so good to me. Yeah, a lot of the lines are pretty hokey, but they fit the whole general vibe, I guess. That's why I get what you mean about her career. You can't have her, but I mean, there's a lot of hokey, over the top stuff happening anyway. It's just like, I have my faith. What do you have? Angel, like, I don't know, man. I'm fine because it all fits the vibe of the movie. I mean, you take it out that context, maybe it's a little silly, but I like the vibe of the movie. I never thought of it as horror, really. I just think of it as like a religious thriller, I guess. Obviously, it has horror elements. That's good enough for me, I wish there was more quality in that subgenre because it's not that good. Because I've tried to get into movies like that because they do interest me. And to build on Kory said, I like all that stuff too, particularly about like the hierarchy of angels in heaven and things like that. It's some wild stuff if you do read it. Not all of it is biblical. As I said, there's various non-canon manuscripts that float around out there that make their way into it. It's not in this movie, but there's a lot of movies that they lean on the demonology side of it, right? There's a lot of that in horror. There's a lot of horror movies that talk about various demons that get mentioned in scripture and things like that, and all that's really fascinating to me too. So Adam Goldberg is really funny in this movie. I really like his quote. He's like, if you were a soul, where would you hide? Adam Goldberg just gives him this weird look and goes, the hell away from you. So there's some good writing in there too. So yeah, I just have a ton of love for this movie.
Oh, what's
I didn't
the
mean
line
to
he
limit you
says
to a
when,
final. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna ask Cole if he remembers what the line is that he says to Casey Jones when he shoots him in the trailer.
When he shoots
shoots him in the
Goldberg?
chest, huh?
When he shoots Goldberg?
Yeah,
And he goes, thanks, man, and dies.
it's something like you're a real sport, or
You're a real sport. And then he's like, yeah, because for people that don't know, I don't know how much we're supposed to fill with the blanks here, but Adam Goldberg is a recently deceased person who committed suicide that Gabriel is able to like breathe life back into his body. So he's kind of in an undead state, and all he wants to do is go back to death, and Gabriel won't let him because he needs to use him for things. So for the whole thing, he just wants to die. So when he finally gets actually killed, that's why he has that. But yeah, it's the thanks, man. You're real sport. Yeah.
which is actually a running theme through the first two movies that Christopher Walken had. It's basically like having a lackey or whatever, an undead lackey, a zombie lackey, whatever you want to call it. But it's his connection to basically anything that he doesn't understand on Earth. So technology, whatnot.
Yeah,
So,
like he can't drive a car. That's
yeah.
why after he loses Goldberg, he has to bring somebody else, and it's somebody just recently deceased, and like she can barely even talk or anything. She swears, and she's just like, "Why?" And he's like, "Can't drive."
Which is played by Amanda Plummer.
That's Amanda Plummer. Yeah.
So
She just spends most of her time whimpering and crying.
yeah. So any other thoughts on the first one?
Yeah, I didn't mean to say final thoughts necessarily. It's like, is there? You can talk as long as you like about this first film.
Okay.
I didn't mean to have you hurry and condense everything.
The first one is just, it's far and away definitely the best one of the franchise, and you'll find that in most franchises, but in this case it really is the truth. I mean, this one's definitely the best one in the franchise, but there are some other good ones in there.
I mean, Thomas Daggett, he seems like a pretty unrealistic character, but it works for the movie again. He's a cop who used to be a priest, but then he had a crisis of faith. I mean, I guess that could have happened somewhere at some point in history, but it is a really interesting thing that, he'd been so close. He was going to go into the priesthood, and then sort of like the last second, he has like this loss of faith. And now what's the next logical thing? He's a cop, and now he's on the scene of a bizarre homicide or suicide or whatever like that. It's a little interesting. So that, yeah, when people start mentioning religious stuff, he knows it all. That's his thing. It's kind of,
which is
different.
Kind of funny that you brought that up, because it reminds me of something my wife always tells me, that everything happens for a reason. There's a reason for everything. So if you get delayed by something and there's a car accident 2 blocks from where you're at, there was a reason you were delayed, and it was so you weren't there. And then you actually, if you take that that concept and apply it to this movie, the reason that he had that crisis of faith and was not a priest was so he could become a detective and save the girl.
All right.
So maybe my wife's right. Maybe everything does happen for a reason. So
That's how it works in this movie. I guess I also like it was the first. Maybe it's not the first movie that's ever done this, but it's the first movie I saw that almost brought sort of a realistic scientific approach. It's like, what would an angel be like? Because they're examining the body, and they discover various things about them. Like obviously, I think that they don't have a belly button because they're not born, and there's some other stuff about. It's hard to remember, but one of the guys, one of them, Uziel, has no eyes at all. He's a hermaphrodite, and there's a few other things in there. Stuff that I probably would not have thought that much about beforehand. But,
oh
I
yeah,
don't know.
the concept of they had the DNA makeup or whatever of an
Aborted fetus.
aborted
yeah.
fetus,
Yeah.
because they weren't born. So
Yeah.
but
Yeah, so maybe other movies have tackled that. It was the first movie I'm aware of that kind of does that. It's like, what would an angel actually be like if they were real? And when you consider the way they're described in the Bible, and it's interesting that the angels have such a place in the hierarchy, but so few in the Bible are actually named. Only a handful of them are actually named.
Yeah,
Michael, me, I'm not. Michael's one, Gabriel's one. And then
Raphael.
if you want to add more, you need to go into like Jewish stuff because they have a few,
Yeah.
and Islamic stuff has some too.
Oh, don't
But,
get me started on Islam.
But if you're speaking strictly Christian, there's only maybe 3 or 4 that are actually named.
Named, yeah, that is true.
But even, I mean,
right.
and as grateful as I am that somebody out there actually had the wherewithal to think of stuff like that, and they also thought of stuff that is now completely overblown and overused when you see anything that deals with angels in TV or movie. What's the one thing you always see an angel wear now?
A long coat.
A long coat.
Yeah.
I'd never seen it before this movie, so.
Yeah, he's
And
kind of.
if I'm wrong, if they were using it beforehand, then so be it. But I mean, this was the first time I ever saw it. So
I don't think so. City of Angels came after this. There's been quite a few now.
The Travolta one was like the same year as this.
Michael.
Yeah, yeah, that's the same year as this. I don't know which was released first. I've erased that movie from my brain because it's goddamn terrible. So, but I remember the date. It was the same year.
I'm sure it was this movie first. It came out in January.
Ah.
So this one first, then.
Yeah. I see here the prophecies.
Yeah, September.
Release date was September 1st. September 1st, 95. Yeah.
No, Michael was December, so it still came first.
Yep. Okay, there you
go. Even the smallest thing, like wearing a long coat or a trench coat. I mean, Castiel wears a trench coat in Supernatural. I mean,
actually, if I think hard now, City of Angels was a couple years after this, but City of Angels was based on a German film from 1989, and I've seen that, and he had the coat there. So
they had the coat.
Still,
okay.
But again, that's a German movie that maybe not a lot of people would have seen or anything. I think this is still the movie. I think Kory's right. This is the movie that popularized that idea. Is really what made it a trope, a thing that people do. But Wings of Desire, by the way, is the name of that film. I haven't seen it in a long time. It's very different from the movie City of Angels, despite the fact that it's supposedly kind of a remake. It's incredibly different. Peter Falk is in it as himself. It's an interesting movie. I think it's 89. But anyway, yeah, that would definitely be more obscure. I think it's true that this was
German and Peter Falk's in it.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah. He had a interesting career.
Ich spreche keine Deutsch. That's about, there you go.
I know some words
Oh,
here and there. My mother somehow retained it all these years later.
Best I can do is Volkswagen Autobahn Wiener Schnitzel.
I can say the stuff that like Nazis said in World War II movies. They're like Schnell, Schnell,
Mach Schnell.
Achtung.
Oh goodness.
So the Prophecy 2.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go.
Well, I think we know I'm partial to this one
Right.
because of Brittany Murphy. This is the one I've watched the most.
I don't think you're the only one who has said that, Andrew. Earlier, Ben. Let me find it.
So, right off, for people that don't know, this is the only other one that still has Gabriel, right? Or at least Walken.
No,
No,
Walken's in the first
there's
3.
one more.
He's in the third too? Shit.
Yeah.
See, already my memory is messed up. Yeah. Yeah.
Ben
Okay.
Ben has only seen The Prophecy 2 because of Brittany Murphy. So,
Yeah, I watched this
Well,
years ago.
I mean, it's
when I was going through all her movies, and I've watched it several times since.
I was seeing, going back and rewatching this, I had forgotten that she was in this movie.
Yeah, this is
well. When I
also
was
one of my-
refreshing too, I forgot a lot of this cast.
Yeah,
these casts
there's
of these movies, how much other people than.
Well, what cast members?
So was
You
so
wanna give the,
Walken's back, obviously.
Bruce Abbott from Reanimator's in here.
Well, Walken's back, obviously. Did
Jennifer Beals.
Jennifer Beal, Brittany Murphy, as we've mentioned several times. Let me look. Eric
Aaron
Roberts,
Danzig is in
as
here.
Michael,
Roberts. It's Michael.
the Archangel. And I guess so. Casey Jones was replaced by a different actor. I had forgotten about that.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Bruce Abbott.
yeah,
From Reanimator, yeah.
Yeah. So Prophecy 2, I'll just get mine out of the way again. It's been now 20 years, but turned around with my cousin Josh, and it wasn't the same night, but within that same week, went back to Blockbuster and rented Prophecy 2. And if I remember right at the time, it was, to me, just as solid as the first one. Now, refreshing myself in these memories and talking, I do think it's still a strong movie and definitely a strong sequel, but I'm pretty sure the first Prophecy movie is slightly better, at least. But I guess that can be argued. It's Andrew's favorite, or the one he knows the most, and like Ben Grimm because of Brittany Murphy. I don't know. Thoughts? This one has Walken's back on Earth to stop the birth of. I guess the child is the child really supposed to be Nephilim? I thought that was a giant or half giant if it's with a.
It will be half human, half angel.
Yeah.
Which some I thought said those were the giants of the back in the biblical days. But I could
I mean, terms like that over the time they get used for a lot of different things. So
Well,
really
I believe the actual verse in the Bible that Jess is referencing is Genesis 6, chapter 4. So you can look it up if you want. But yeah, like you were saying, Jess, Jennifer Beals is in this. Russell Wong, who I'm a big fan of. I loved him in the Vanishing Son movies with my teenage crush, Rebecca Gayheart. Brittany Murphy. Glenn Danzig makes a brief cameo in this as one of the angels. Don't ask me which one. I cannot remember the name. Eric Roberts.
Daniel.
Yeah. No, Glenn Danzig doesn't play Daniel. That's Russell Wong.
Well, he plays no. There's two characters that have like very similar. Danielle. I don't know how it works, but Russell Wong and Glenn Danzig are both credited as Danielle, but like a weird spelling of it.
He is correct. DANYEAL.
YEAL. Yeah, that's actually Russell Wong's character. I don't know I could have swore it was something like Uziel or something like that.
Uziel's in the
That was
first
in the
one.
first
He's the one. He's the one they find that they do the autopsy on that I was talking about.
Huh.
Anyway, he plays another angel.
Yeah, another fallen
Russell
angel.
Wong kills him. So, J.G. Hertzler, who, if anybody ever watched the early '90s Zorro show that was on like the Family Channel, he played the
did.
second alcalde, which I believe was season 4.
My memory's not that good for that. I did watch it, but I couldn't tell you.
I
who's
have the
on it.
box set upstairs.
There you go. Yeah.
I loved that show. So
So did I.
Danny Strong, who actually had a cameo in Dangerous Minds. He was also in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Gilmore Girls. And one of Jess's, I don't think it's Jess's one of Jess's favorite actors, but it's an actor from one of Jess's favorite movies. Ethan Embry's in this.
Oh,
I enjoy Ethan Embry. I love his work from when he was a kid. To
what
a
movie is
grown-up.
that? Is this a movie you like or you don't like? I'm not sure.
Oh, he
What is
loves
Ethan
this.
Embry?
We all kind of love this movie here. That Thing You Do. He plays the bassist.
That's a great movie. Big fan
It's
of
a lot
that
of
movie.
fun. Yeah,
It was.
us too.
But he plays the young coroner. After
Same year as this first one.
After Gabriel gets shot at some point in the movie, he decides he's going to steal Gabriel's coat. So, but yeah, like Jess said, it talks about Nephilim, which is actually in the Bible, so that's actually biblical. But this movie actually Jennifer Beals is naked in it. So, and if it's not her and it's a body double, I didn't know. So, but it's still fun to watch.
And he doesn't want to know.
No, I don't. Don't tell me.
Don't ruin it.
But she's actually drop dead gorgeous. I mean, if you're not going to bring back Virginia Madsen from the first one, who I think is drop dead gorgeous, I mean, Jennifer Beals is pretty close second. So. Oh, and they actually show what happens to the Garden of Eden.
So they say.
And
It's a big
it's
factory.
disappointing. Yeah, it's like
It's a big factory.
So
Garden
could
of
the
Eden is
Danielle
given
be
later.
Danielle Jr.? Because I
That's
noticed
possible.
now. Because when we were doing that, I'm trying to look back, and it does have a third cast member, Michael Ramey, listed as Danielle.
Yeah,
Daniel
the last
Jr.
scene in the movie shows the little boy,
Oh, okay. So
the
that isn't.
Nephilim,
Well,
and he's named Daniel or Daniel.
okay. Well, I have no clue.
But I enjoyed this movie, not nearly as much as I enjoyed the first one, but I like this movie. Like I said, I loved Russell Wong in the Vanishing Son movies, and you don't really see him too much in anything else. So, or at least anything that I normally watch. So, it's kind of fun to see him in this, and it's not like a bit part. He's got a pretty significant role in this movie. And Brittany Murphy, as everybody's already brought up, is in this, and she gets to play the undead lackey or whatever. So, anybody else have any thoughts on this? Anybody else remember this?
Well, I mean, yeah, I remember this is what I've come back around to and like more now. Because back in the day, I remember being quite disappointed, and I did not like the cast, the changes and the new people. I was not really impressed by them at all. I was glad about Christopher Walken, but I didn't care so much about the rest. And as far as somebody like a Glenn Danzig goes, I would not have known who that was back then. Because again, I would have seen this movie when it was fairly new, probably when it was new on video. So I mean, I've rewatched it over the years and I've come to appreciate it more. But I remember being kind of intensely disappointed in it at the time. I like it more now, but yeah, I mean, Christopher Walken's still good, but I don't know, the writing's not as good. He doesn't have as many cool moments or lines or anything like that. Russell Wong, I never meant anything to me. I had no idea who he was or anything like that. Same thing with Bruce Abbott. It's not like they were bad or anything like that. They just didn't make much of an impact on me. But as I said, I like it more now. I do. It does still carry sort of the same vibe and spirit of the first one. I mean, it is a little diminished, but I can still feel it and I can still appreciate it. It's still, despite probably having a pretty low budget, has a pretty good atmosphere, I'd say. I don't know. I'm still kind of split on this whole Garden of Eden has turned into a dilapidated factory. It's definitely an interesting decision. It's something different, I suppose. I don't know. We're almost veering off that whole war and heaven thing. It's almost like it's showing like it's over, right? Is that what they're saying? Like it's ended, and we're moving on to new things, or
the way that they explain it in the second one is that if this Nephilim is born, then it can reunite all the angels and put an end to the war.
Right.
So in the
the
first
war
one,
is still ongoing. Okay.
yeah. But in the first one, they were fighting over this dark soul of this military leader or whatever, general, colonel, whatever.
The guy from the Korean War. Yeah.
Yeah. And whoever got his soul was going to have the advantage over the other side. And then the good guys won. So now the bad guys are the ones that are still trying to win the war or whatever, keep the war going, or trying to keep this Nephilim from being born. Damn it. I had another thought on this and it completely slipped my mind.
We did kind of
This is what happens when you get older, damn it.
The plot point there, the MacGuffin, or like you said, that we kind of didn't mention in the first one is, the balance of power in this war and this really ultra terrible soul, and the whole thing going there is that the first angel takes the soul and gets to hold it for a while, trying to hide it from Gabriel. And before Gabriel can find him, he reluctantly passes it to a mortal, to a young innocent girl, and that's kind of what really drives the plot. There is Daggett and Virginia Madsen's character like trying to protect this girl that has this rogue angel after her. And
which can we just make one brief comment here? That scene where he passes that soul onto the little girl would not go today.
Yeah, I know.
That would not fly today at all.
That's true, because he has to like put his mouth on hers. I mean, I'm sure they do some sort of, I don't know how it goes. I remember, not to go off topic, but I remember hearing about how, like, when they made that movie about that band, The Runaways, there's a scene where two of the girls kiss in that, and one of them is I'm gonna blank on everybody's name, but Kristen Stewart. Kristen Stewart is there, and the younger one might be Ellie Fanning. And at the time, Kristen Stewart was 19 and Ellie Fanning was 15, and they were supposed to kiss, and there was all like this weird, I don't remember, but like they had to have like her parents on the set, and they had to take all these weird precautions because technically she was a minor with a legal adult, and they were going to have like physical contact. I don't know. Like they were able to do it, but like they had to follow all these protocols and regulations, which kind of seems silly, but I get it. This is much different because this is like a 9-10-year-old girl and a full, a man like in his 30s. And I mean, they don't, and they show it for what it is. They don't try to make it seem like it's a romantic thing, but like you said, it's the way it has to be done. Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, there's no way it can be done now. So, yeah, sorry to interrupt. You were.
Well, I was talking about something. No, I was just saying, like, no, I guess, yeah, that we kind of failed to mention that when we were on the first movie, that was sort of the thing that drove the plot, was like what you said about how they were trying to get the soul of that guy that committed all those war crimes in Korea. And it does lead to some odd, interesting things, because her holding the soul kind of makes her somewhat like relive his memories or something. It's not like he's possessed by him because he's dead. But remember, she goes all blank and starts saying stuff like him, and she's talking about like how she's killing Chinamen and stuff like that. Like, and she talks about how they dug in the cold to fight them and all that. Like, it's an interesting scene. Again, how well does it hold up? I don't know, but it fits the movie, so I don't complain about it.
Yeah. Which reminds me of what it was I was going to say. The whole point of the war, and especially in these first two movies, is that the angels that are like Gabriel and his side are trying to get rid of the humans because God has shown or has put us above them, and they don't want it that way. They want it back the way it was before us. So that's the whole point of all of this, is that they want things the way they were before humans were on the scene.
Which they also did in Dogma. You had angels that resented the fact that they'd been pushed aside and God favored the humans. That's actually in Dogma too. Although
that's what I keep thinking about when we're talking about this. Is I keep thinking about Dogma.
I'm a fan of Dogma too.
But we're all talking monkeys,
I like it.
So at least according to Gabriel. So
yeah. I mean, now that I'm reading some of this and trying to remember some of the things, like it says, Gabriel eventually, Michael turns him human somehow. And when stuff like that happens, I'm a little confused because, like, I don't. It's another one of those things where, like, when you have rules like this, I don't know how the rules work. Like, I'm like, is Michael more powerful than Gabriel? I guess he is if he can do that. You know, sometimes those things aren't too well established in movies like this. It's hard to get a sense of what the rules are. It's like, what will actually kill an angel and things like that, or what can hurt them, what they're vulnerable to.
In these first three movies, they make it pretty clear what can kill an angel. They change later, but
I mean, they change, yeah.
But
because I mean, we do have angels being murdered. Yeah, I know that.
But in these first three movies, it's very, very cut and dry. The only way to kill an angel is to rip his heart out. So, yeah. Anyway, but there was something else that I've always thought was strange, at least in horror movies, that religious horror movies or whatever, they'll talk about, and it gets brought up later in this franchise as well, terms like the Antichrist, stuff like that. But yet Jesus is never depicted as a character in these movies. He's never mentioned as a character in these movies. I mean, he's pretty much non-existent, but yet in every one of these movies, they're in a church with pictures of Jesus, crosses, crucifixes.
It is a little odd,
but he's never mentioned. He's non-existent in any way, shape, or form as an actual character. God's mentioned, but Jesus himself is never mentioned.
I kind of get it. He's like almost like an added complication because he's kind of the bridge between the divine and the mortal in a way. He's not an angel. He was a human, but he's, the son of God or whatever. I guess maybe he's a complication they don't want to throw into the mix, even though
very well
he's a huge part of it, right? It is kind of odd. Like the whole religion here he's a big part of it.
That's a good point. That could very well be it. Just too complicated to bring him in. Where this stuff lies. The story.
Also,
lies.
because when you're doing these biblical apocalypse revelations type things, I guess you kind of have to pick a lane. Because then there's the ones, about the second coming. That's a whole thing. But that's not what we're doing here. It's not a second coming thing. It's not a battle between heaven and hell. This is an internal battle in heaven. So. I just don't want to mix too much stuff.
And we'll touch a little bit more on that in the next movie, but it's always seemed kind of strange to me that they use Christianity and to a lesser extent, Judaism in almost all of these movies. Like Islam's pretty much non-existent in any of these movies, which doesn't bother me at all. But it just seems kind of strange that, you know, Christianity is like pretty much in the forefront of all of these movies, but Jesus is never depicted in them, even as an outside character. So, but like you were saying, Cole, you know, it probably is just more of a too much of a complication for the writers.
Right.
So, but Andrew, do you remember anything about this, or outside of Brittany Murphy?
It's been a while since I've watched it, but I was just about to, so now my memory's a little bit fuzzy.
That's okay. Mine is too. Again,
Yeah, I mean, I remember her in it a little bit. She's actually something I don't remember too well from it. I remember other parts better than her. I mean, I do know she was in it and what she did, but nothing about her stands out. But like I said, I was at the time, and I've watched it since and come around and liked it more. I remember being disappointed, and particularly in the cast. I didn't like the. Or maybe it's not even cast. Maybe it's just characters themselves. I'm not trying to pick on the actors. I just didn't like the characters as much as in the first one. But
Yeah, I think overall the first movie is obviously way better, but this is the one, like I said, I gravitated towards the most.
yeah, it still has a good atmosphere, I think.
There is one thing that I've learned from these movies that I definitely want to try when I get to work on Tuesday, and that is the whole shh and then hitting them on the forehead and see if that works with my boss. No guarantees.
Go for it. Go for it. For sure,
I'm going to.
I don't know if I recommend that.
I'm saying go for it.
What does everybody else in the chat think? Should I go for it? Should I try the whole shh and then hit him in the forehead?
100% yes.
Because somebody else plays Lucifer in this, but they're only in it briefly, right?
Yeah.
Yuri Weinberg.
Yeah.
That's just at the start, I think. I don't think they show up again later.
No, they don't. Even as they show him, they never show his whole face. It's like they show his mouth and then hit him from behind, but they never show his face.
Well, there's another. I don't know if you would. I'd call it a flaw for most movies in this series. I was going to bring it up when we get to part 3, but just it's more than just one or two characters that there's like a new actor playing the character, especially in these first three or these first three movies, and that's kind of annoying as a movie fan when you.
It is, but it would be even more annoying if those characters played bigger roles in the next movie. So, like, if Casey Jones was playing a bigger role in part 2 and they had replaced him, like, I've only ever seen maybe one movie where they replaced the main actress, and I thought it was an upgrade. Well, I guess 2 movies. Subspecies, when they replaced the girl who played Michelle with Denise Duff, and the Hatchet movies when they replaced whatever her name is with Danielle Harris.
Danielle Harris. Yeah.
I don't even think I noticed that in Hatchet. I really don't like those movies. I don't think I noticed. I don't think I even noticed.
But yeah,
It's so funny because I love Danielle Harris, but I do think the original chick was way better in that role for what it is. I know they're not great movies, but I enjoy them.
Yeah.
Speaking of my negativity, I remember years ago we were doing a sausage factory, and we had a special guest on. I didn't know who the hell he was, and I laid into those movies, and he was some guy that had worked on them. And I talked about how crappy they were and how bad they were. It turned out, like, I don't think he was like a major driving force in them, but he'd worked on all 3 movies, and he's like, well, I don't know, but like, he was talking about, well, I think the director's intention was to blah blah blah. I was like, they were like, oh, like he was there, he knows them. I was like, oh shit.
Well, to me, I appreciate that kind of honesty. I mean, I get trying to be somewhat polite, you bring in somebody on that's worked on them, but at the same time, does everybody need to be, pardon my French, jerking the guy off just because he's worked on them? Whether you
That's
want to
no
lie
fun
to
to
him.
watch. That's no fun
Yeah.
to watch.
I
That's
mean, it
not
was
as fun,
something.
yeah.
It was. I can't remember
Exactly,
now.
yeah.
It was because the whole thing was it was something else we were going to talk to him about. Like I didn't, I did. It was for some other reason, so I had no idea he had any connection to those movies. So but anyway.
A little
You react.
constructive criticism never hurt anybody. So
Yeah, but I was being a smartass. I wasn't being constructive.
I love it. It's perfect for this show, Cole.
Mm.
Well, Jamie had said she remembers very little about part 2. The only thing she can remember is thinking that it didn't look as nice as the first one. That's a good point because the first one was a theatrical release,
Right.
and everyone after it, including even part 2 and 3 with Christopher Walken, were straight to video.
And you can tell it is very noticeable. I think.
Yeah.
The drop there.
I didn't think the drop off was that drastic.
Well, I've seen worse straight to video as far as
for sure.
cinematography and looks of what they filmed on or videotaped on.
That opening scene where Christopher Walken climbs out of hell, I thought that looked great.
I mean, Greg Spence directed this movie, and I don't even know who the hell he is, and he doesn't even have like a Wikipedia page or anything. So, I'm not saying that means it's absolutely terrible from that. I'm just saying.
And I guess probably should have nodded Greg. Wyden directed the first one and wrote the first one. Wyden, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess it's Wyden. Gregory Wyden.
Does anybody? I honestly don't know.
He also created Highlander, by the way. If people didn't know that.
I didn't know that.
Created
That's saying
Highlander.
something.
Yeah.
Do any of you know? Sean's asking if The Prophecy did well at the box office.
That can be found out pretty easily.
I would assume it did well enough to merit a sequel.
Well
But
enough, but
not
probably
well
not like
enough
a
to-
super box office success either.
It probably didn't move the needle much.
Or it
Box
wouldn't have went
office
straight
was
to video.
16.1 million. I don't
On
know
a
its budget. I
budget,
mean, I
yeah.
assume a pretty low budget. So I would say it wasn't a flop or anything.
It has like an estimated budget of $8 million, so it
doubled its money.
Yeah.
Like I have to think about my age here. I would have been 12, almost 13 or so when that had a theatrical release. So back then I was certainly cognizant of movies that were coming to the theater, but there's so many that just went by that I didn't know. So, I mean, I don't have any memory of this being in the theater. The first time I saw it, Ryan and I rented it. I saw it on VHS in his basement, which is how I saw many movies back in the 90s, So I had no conception that it had been in the theater. I guess probably I figured that out. But, yeah.
Well, sometimes back then we only had, I guess by the mid 90s we had 4 theaters in the mall, but for a long time we only had 2 theaters and then an old downtown theater. And sometimes we wouldn't get movies at all until they went on video. They just, for some reason, our theaters didn't get every theatrical release as they do today.
I mean, was this movie rated R?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes. So I could not have seen it in theater anyway. There's no way I was getting in. I mean, I was
This
young
was definitely
12.
back in a time where if it was a horror movie or an action movie, it had to be rated R if they wanted to make any money off of it. So
Yeah, it was really the mid 2000s with all those remakes where they really made the switch where it's like everything's PG-13. We want a wider audience. Tone this down. Get rid of the F words. Get rid of the nudity.
Yeah. Should never try to set that type of goal for a movie, like especially a horror movie. If you write a good horror movie and it ends up still being PG, or if it ends up being PG-13, that's great. But when you actually try to make a movie PG-13, it almost always fails.
I just don't like following any of those sorts of conventions because they're just like, oh, well, we want as many people as possible to see the movie. So tone it down, make sure it stays within a PG-13. Just like, and I mean, this is a more practical one. And I know that not everybody is like a movie snob like me or anything like that. And this is more practical, especially when you're talking about theatrical release. But another big thing is running time, right? a lot of people get pissed off when movies are long, and I always think my philosophy is just movies are as long or as short as they need to be. If a movie is long, it's bad, it's bad. If it's long and it's good. Like I don't, if it felt too long, okay, they made a mistake. But like, I'm not put off by long running times if I think that's what the movie needed. But,
well, I agree with that last statement. I mean, but I feel like today especially, they think every movie, and this goes for any genre, needs to be a freaking epic length. Most movies are well over 2 hours. Even a lot of kids' movies are starting to be family movies. And it's like, what happened to the 80, 90-minute movies that we grew up with?
Well, see, like I do understand that in spirit, but I'm almost a backlash against that, to tell you the truth, because
I don't mean to
feel like
set it to that, but I feel like they're almost purposely trying to write longer, because I'd rather you leave me wanting more than leave me going, man, I wish this movie ended 20 minutes ago.
Yeah,
or if you cut out 20 minutes, this would have been a better movie.
And like I said, it's a more practical thing. Theaters are reluctant to show long movies unless it's maybe part of a big franchise or something like that, and they know it's going to get people in the seats. It's kind of a big gamble to have like a movie that's like 2 hours 45 minutes and like nobody knows anything about it. Not some sort of guaranteed moneymaker. But yeah, see, like Avatar coming out, like people expect that, so it's not so even people that are normally turned off by that, it's Avatar, so like we get it. It's going to be really long and epic, and that's the way it goes. But for most movies, you see a 3-hour running time, people are going to be like, "What?" And I mean, people are still like that for Avatar, but it's a little more acceptable for something like Avatar because we've already had a first one which was fairly long, and it has that whole epic thing. And you're right, it is annoying, the convention of trying to take movies and give them an epic feel when there's really no need for it because it's not the story that's being told. But so I get it. I'm not trying to say there's ever right or wrong, but I am a defender of longer movies.
Again, if you write the movie and you're telling the story and it happens to be 2 or 3 hours long, that's fine, that's great. But I feel like they're almost just trying to make those. It kind of goes to like trying to make a movie PG-13. No, just write the good movie and it'll be what it'll be, whether it's a longer movie or shorter movie, a rated R movie or a PG movie.
Or hey, here's a thought. Instead of doing a 3-hour movie, do 2 parts and have each one be an hour and a half.
Well, again, there's where I'd rather you leave me wanting more. Give me a good sequel than a year or two later.
See, I agree with that, but then there's always another side to it, because another thing I find out from like people, the popular target, of course, is like a Marvel movie, right? A lot of people think the Marvel movies are too long. And then the other side of that too is a lot of people are like, geez, I don't want a movie that's all just about setting up sequels. It should just do everything in the one movie. So like it is kind of an impossible line to walk. Some people think the movies are too long, but then other people are annoyed that this movie doesn't tell you everything and you have to have a sequel to go with it. So, there's no winning in that kind of scenario, really.
Very true.
Yeah, but I wonder if those people are the same ones that get pissed off when there's a cliffhanger at the end of a season of a TV show.
Yeah, I don't understand that. I mean, that's the way it works, and I'm not even a big TV person. Last year I watched Yellow Jackets, and and Jay watched it too, and I asked him what he thought, and he said he was so annoyed by the way that ended. And I was like, "You do realize there's going to be more?" He's like, "Yeah, but they didn't tell you." And I was like, "Isn't that the whole point, though, to set up for season 2?" So I was a little confused by his attitude about that. I was like, "What?" I'm like, if there's going to be a season 2, how many loose ends do you think are going to be tied up in a season finale? It's all about cliffhangers and, what's going to happen next? So I was a little confused by his reaction to that. And he watches way more shows than I do. I'm not a shows person. I very rarely dip my toe in that. But I did for Yellow Jackets. I thought it was pretty good. And the way the episode ended was exactly kind of what I was expecting. But Jay said, he was watching with his wife, and as the time was running out, he's just like, he was getting madder and madder because he knew they weren't going to resolve this or that or the other thing, that they were just going to go to the cliffhanger. But I mean, I thought that was the convention. I thought that's how you did it. But,
well, I remember back to The Walking Dead when they introduced the one character with the bat. The dude who played Papa Winchester on Supernatural.
Negan. I was kind of thinking of Walking Dead when you guys are talking about this cliffhanger.
And there were people that had what are they? They were doing protests or some crap about the fact that there was a cliffhanger and nobody knew who got hit and who died, and shut the fuck up and wait for the next season.
Yeah. I'll try not to turn this into a huge digression, but I'll just try to really quick. Like, one thing that like the internet and everything has taught me, and we talk about how crappy fandoms are, everybody squabbling and arguing over things like that, is like I've realized not only, I mean, it's one thing that there are people out there that don't like the things I like and like things I dislike, and we have different, like, fine, whatever. But I've discovered there are people that don't seem to understand how fiction works. Now, I'll bring up another Marvel thing really quick. So a couple years ago, they did that show, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? And in that show, just let people know, the whole thing is it's after Captain America had retired and moved on. And in the show, not in reality, in the show, the powers that be were like, we're going to make a new Cap. I don't know if you guys know that or not. I don't know if you watch, but the character from the comics, he would be U.S. agent, and the whole idea was like, okay, we're going to give the people a new Cap. Here's Mr. Walker, and he's a new Cap. And so many people in real life watching the show reacted as if they were in the fictional universe of the show, because they were all like, not my Cap. And they're like, I can't believe he's on the poster. Like, they're all acting like they're not watching a fictional thing, where the whole point of the story is, yeah, he's not a very good Cap and he sucks and he's going to get replaced by the good guys. They were all acting like they lived in the Marvel universe, and they were like shaking their fist at the makers of the show as if they were the people, the government or whoever that were replacing the Cap. Like, I don't know how to process that. Who watches a show like that? Who reacts to a show as if they live inside that reality? It's a show we're watching. It's fiction. It just blew my mind.
So weird.
It just blew my mind. It was all over Twitter, like, not my Cap, and they were so mad, like, I can't believe they're trying to pull this crap. Like, there's a new Cap. I'm like, that is the story. That's the side we're on. We're watching the good guys.
I kind of knew that going into it.
That's the whole setup, right? Yeah, we watch, Bucky and Falcon, who are friends of Cap. Like, what do you think they're going to do? They're going to be like, no, we don't like this. This is bad. And, fight against it. But I just could not believe that reaction. Because
I'm not going to get into why and what. I ended up shutting that show off.
Yeah.
But it wasn't because of that, because I love the Falcon. And I'm definitely fine with the Winter Soldier. I was very excited about that. Yeah. And I knew he was supposed to become the new Captain America. That wasn't the reason why I stopped watching.
I mean, whether the show is good or bad is neither here nor there in this point, right?
Yeah,
like whether it's a good show or bad.
That's what
show.
I was making.
This audience is watching a fictional show and acting as if the decisions made by the fictional characters in it are like what the writers are trying to pull on us. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I didn't even know how to articulate it, and I still probably didn't do a good job. But you know what I mean. So, like, that's another thing that's opened up my world. Is like, I know there's going to be people I disagree with and they don't like things, but I mean, do you even understand how fiction works? Like, I don't understand your reactions to these things. And yeah, so anyway, that kind of reminds me a little bit about people getting mad about season finale cliffhangers and stuff. I was like, again, isn't that how it works? I mean, I get it. It's bad if there's a cliffhanger and then there's no payoff ever, but that's not the intention. Anyway.
Good points. Good points.
So, the Prophecy 2.
Any other thoughts before we move?
Prophecy 2 is a movie that exists, and at one time we were talking about. Sorry.
But like Cole was saying, I think it was Cole that said it. At the end of the Prophecy 2, Michael ends up walking over, and he puts his hand on, because all the angels have a marking or what's called angelic script that's scarred into their neck or whatever, and he puts his hand on that and removes it, and now Christopher Walken or Gabriel is human. He becomes the one thing that he hates the most. And the last, the end of the movie is, Jennifer Beals sending Daniel, the little boy, the Nephilim, off to school, and you see Christopher Walken sitting on the side of a street, and he's a homeless guy. And some woman comes up and gives him a cup of soup. And you hear him talking about how the phone's going to ring and, how, God's going to want him back and whatnot. Yeah. But it actually feeds into the third one because whereas like the first
I
one
was just
was
gonna
kind
say,
of like
isn't that the third starts to get into the third story?
yeah, but like the first one was kind of like an introduction to the characters themselves, and kind of has a loose tie into the second one. The third one has a direct tie into the second one. So if you want to go ahead and pull that up, Jess.
Yeah, I will first, just real quick. Jamie loves your
Damn.
rants, Cole.
I'm trying to avoid rants. Ah, man, I
I
thought
did
that
too.
was, I thought that was, I don't know. My intent was not a rant, but oh well, you know.
It was
Maybe
perfect.
not necessarily a rant, but I love your thoughts, and I think that's what she means as well.
Yeah.
Love
no,
it when
thank
you go
Jamie.
off.
I mean, yeah, I guess so. I don't know.
I'm not.
Before I go on a rant of what I think a rant is, we will we'll let
Don't
that
do
lie.
Don't do
We'll let that lie for God's sakes. But yeah, the ending is what I remember the most of the second movie. Like the last like 10, 15 minutes, the whole climax, the ending. That's what I remember most clearly about the second one. And Gabriel is now doomed to walk the earth as a lowly human. That in itself was satisfying. I didn't have an issue with that. I thought that was kind of a neat thing. He'd already been to hell, but he didn't even mind hell as much as he'd mind that, you know, this is the punishment that's worse, like, because he hates humans so much.
So the Prophecy 3.
The Ascent.
This poster is misleading because that is not how Christopher Walken looks at all throughout this movie.
No, he has longer hair.
No, he has long hair, not longer hair. It's long. It's longer
long,
than mine.
Lighter. It's here's what I'll just get, as always, get mine out of the way. The Ascent. This is where it really drops off for me. I mean, we went again, same time period, went back to the video store. We're at this point, we're finishing off the franchise. So, and we're kind of excited. We've enjoyed the first two. And this just drops off for me. I mean, it still has Walken, thank goodness. But his character, the script is not as good. I mean, he does have a few moments to where his delivery, of course, is classic Walken. I can't remember the exact scene. He's sitting in a chair, going back and forth, and it's almost like, well, any of Walken's delivery. I was going to say Pulp Fiction, but he just has this whole. I'm not going to do it again. Don't worry, everybody.
Oh, do it again.
No, I'm not doing it again. Can't. Patrick Lussier directed it. We all, I think, know him. I think he's an editor. He's definitely directed several movies in the horror genre.
He worked with Wes Craven a lot.
A lot, yeah, that's right.
He did like editing for stuff like Red Eye and Cursed. Scream 3.
And then has gone on to direct himself. Well, obviously he's directed back then too.
Ooh, he wrote Drive Angry now. 3D.
Drive Angry. I don't think I saw that one.
I saw that movie. He wrote it. Great. That's one of Nick Cage's many movies that look like it was made in like a day.
He's got, like you said, he's got many of those. Oh, that just reminded me. We're gonna go. I don't want to go off on another one, but we just watched The Family Man. As I have, I love Nick Cage and The Family Man.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Great holiday movie.
Holiday, yeah. I guess you're right. I hadn't really.
It can be a Christmas movie.
It's got that feel. Yeah, it's true.
But anyway, back on track. Prophecy 3: The Ascent. The cast they're pulling in on this, though, even for being direct to video, aside from Walken, you got Brad Dourif in this one now. As we mentioned earlier, characters are recast. They're not the original actors playing them. That Valerie girl. But I think she possibly, spoiler alert, dies early in this movie.
Yeah, right at the beginning.
Yeah. Vincent Spano plays a fallen angel, I think. And it just, again, I really remember the least about this of the first three movies. And I just remember this I think turned me off, and it's probably why I haven't gone back to watch these movies in 20 years. Is The Ascent. I was kind of excited for it and then was let down. Go ahead.
Let me ask you this, Jess. Okay, if you were to grade the first one, what grade would you give it? What letter grade would you give it?
Trying to think back to my original experience and then kind of refreshing myself. Just on a as far as just a horror movie.
Just yeah, sure.
B minus generous, maybe a C plus, to be truthful.
Okay, I would have given it A minus, B plus.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm in that thing too for the original.
Okay, the second one I probably would have given a B minus.
Okay.
But the third one I would have given probably a C
for
or a
me.
C plus.
And see, mine's a little lower than
see-
you guys then. So I guess the first one, if I'm going with these, gets a B minus. Second one would get a solid C. It's a good solid horror movie. C plus maybe, if I'm giving the first one a B minus. And this third one, it'd be lucky if I gave it a C minus. D plus probably.
Well, see, a large part of the reason why I like the third one is just the concept of the story alone. Because the story in this one, the meaning behind the war changes. And it's no longer that they're trying to get rid of the humans so they can have heaven and get God's attention again. It's they want to get rid of the humans, but they also want to replace God now. And they're basically trying to make this angel Puriel, I hope I'm saying that right, who is supposed to be the angel of genocide, the new god. And he, in my opinion, I think he looks really cool. He's all decked out in white, whereas like all the other angels are in darker colors and stuff. He's all in white.
You're making it sound better than it was executed.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you what
I think it's the
in
kind of
the
thing.
movie.
It's a good concept. I think not well executed. It's kind of how I feel too. It is a good concept. And speaking of what we talked about canonicity before, like Puriel is not in the Bible. He's in the Testament of Abraham, one of the apocryphal works that we've mentioned before. So stepping outside a little there on that.
See, and I didn't even look that up. See, I just thought he was just something made up.
You know, he has a basis in something, although there's not a lot of detail. Just like it's
And
interesting.
I think that's cool. So,
well, I mean, a lot of this stuff is vague, and that's where it leaves room to be creative and do some things with it. Like the Nephilim that we talked about, they are only mentioned in 2 places in the Bible. And one is early in the Genesis, and then it's like way later on that they show up again. And in Genesis, it's basically after the whole Garden of Eden incident. Certain angels were sent to Earth to sort of monitor humans, and what had happened there was that these angels that I guess were considered male, I don't know how they did it, decided it would be a good thing to like mate with women, and that's where the first of those came from. And as Jess had mentioned before, how they sometimes get mentioned as giants. It's sort of vague, but the idea is like these beings were at least supposed to be pretty tall, and they were pretty strong. And I think that's all they really said about it. They're half angels. But anyway, they were big and powerful, and they were a real threat to taking over the whole world at a time, which is kind of funny because it's how quickly things move if you're used to reading the Bible, because it's just like, this seems like a huge thing, but if you flip ahead, it's already done and over with, because that's just the way the Bible is. And then like I'm trying to think, I had it here where they show up again, but they don't get another mention until like much later on. So anyway, these things, you'd think they would have more detail, but they don't. So it is interesting when you can make a movie where you can take these concepts that like are really only touched on in the Bible, that you just get a hint of something and are not that well defined or explored. So it is cool from that perspective, I think.
well, I do know that there are some theories out there that where they talk about there's a specific word in the Bible that they use, and they talk about men of renown or whatever when they're referencing the Nephilim. And I know that there's a theory that that's where like the Greeks get the concept for Hercules and all the Greek heroes and whatnot and their mythology.
The
They think that-
pantheon.
Yeah, they think that that's where that might have come from. And my old age is kicking in again.
Senior moment.
Yeah, it happens. But yeah, I completely lost track of what I was going to say.
Well, maybe it'll come to you.
Yeah,
Sean thinks these posters are awful. Dan Shine, quick shout out. Hey guys, sorry I
Dan.
couldn't join you tonight. Love the first 3 Prophecy films.
We
Thanks
miss
for
you,
dropping
Dan.
by.
Yeah.
We miss it.
This
Sean-
third one's where my memory starts to fail me for sure.
Sean, you forgot ass. They're badass. I love those posters, especially the first two. The first two posters are awesome.
They're okay.
Jess, you're muted. I can't hear
I
you.
was just
Sean.
going, yeah, there. I don't know if I'd agree with
Yeah,
that.
I think they're okay. I don't hate them or anything.
They
But,
work.
Yeah, so the timeline here is skewed for me as far as like, because Jess said it was like sometime. The three movies were already out when you kind of rented them in succession in a short thing. So I saw both of the first two movies probably within about a year of their releases. But the third movie I did not see for quite a few years. By this point, I had lost track of the series, forgotten about it. I knew the first movie existed, and I remember being disappointed in the second, and had no knowledge that it continued. So we're talking maybe 2008, 2009 by the time I found out some other sequels have been banged out and I watched this movie. And it's hard to say if I even watched it again since. But yeah, so I don't know. So it was much more isolated from the other movies by the time I watched it. I mean, I in the intervening years, like I said, I would revisit the first one because I was a fan of it. Not so much the second one. So it's possible in watching the third one, I might have been a little lost because I maybe couldn't quite recall some of the events of the second one too clearly. I mean, now, like I said, I've watched it since, and the ending is what I remember the best about the second one. But I think at the time, like my memories were pretty vague of the second one. So when I watched the third one, I was like, well, Christopher Walken's here, but I don't know what's going on. I remember probably being a little bit at sea when I watched it, and since I didn't like it that much, I didn't put much effort into looking anything up or caring. I kind of watched it and moved on, I guess is what it was. And then I was like surprised again to find out there were more, which I, again, did not get to for a while.
Me too.
Before I forget this time, one of the things that I was trying to bring up earlier that I forgot was, and I don't know how much of this Jess is going to want me to tell. Jess and I, towards the end of high school, we had always talked about trying to do or work on a script together or something. And we sat down and we wrote out a story and wrote out a script, and we thought was this great idea, and we let a buddy of ours read it, and he came back to us and he goes, yeah, it's a nice idea, except it sounds a lot like the Warlock, and it sounds a lot like the Prophecy. Do you remember this, Jess?
Yeah, well, it became Original Sin. I remember at the time going, yeah, it is kind of like the Warlock, because that's the.
But
only,
I had
hadn't
never seen either
Prophecy
movie,
yet.
so
I worked at a video store at the time too. I think,
But-
yeah.
yeah. Back when we were discussing when the first movie came out in theaters or whatever, I didn't even know it existed. This point, when our mutual friend was telling us, well, this script sounds a lot like this movie and this movie, I didn't know either one existed.
Are you talking about the Julian Sands Warlock movie?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
So
like that movie.
yeah, and so do I. But that'll be another episode of the Horror Rumble someday.
That'll be a good one, yeah.
What are you backing off for,
maybe
Jess?
Season 10, perhaps.
Season
I don't
10.
know.
But Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there because I'd completely forgotten all about that. So, me and my senior moments tonight.
That was the senior moment that you had forgot. Okay.
Earlier, I'll remember this one when we're talking about part 5.
Do you remember anything, Andrew, of the third film?
I remember it not being as good as the previous two, but I like the director Patrick Lussier. I like obviously My Bloody Valentine 3D. That's a really fun remake. But he also did that movie Trick. Did you guys see that movie Trick from a couple years ago? It had Jamie Kennedy in it.
I don't think I
I have
have.
not.
It's one you can find at the Dollar Tree pretty regularly. It's not great by any means, but it's a little fun movie. I like him, his directing note, like, so I don't hate this movie by any means, but I do have to give it a rewatch. It's been a long time. Um, but yeah, I mean, not as good as the first two is really mostly what I remember.
Sounds
Well,
about right.
much like we were talking about with the first two, in this third one, the idea is that they have to kill Daniel. The angels have to kill Daniel to keep him from stopping Puriel from becoming the new god. So that's the whole point of, and I forget Vincent Spano's character's name because it's a weird angel name and I can't remember it. But that's the whole point of his job is to try and stop Daniel before he can stop Puriel from becoming the new god.
Well, as you can read Big T, though I've never seen these movies, you guys have 100% sold me on these. Well,
That's
nice.
awesome.
I mean, at the
They're-
very
they're-
least, they're worth a watch.
And
Yeah.
they're also extremely cheap. You can get like all 5 of them for like $10 on DVD.
That's a really good deal. That is definitely worth it for the first movie alone.
I can tell you the first Prophecy movie is on Freevee. I think it's on Tubi. It's on like 5 or 6 different streaming sites right now. So as soon as this is over, if you want to go watch it, it's on one of those. Just type it in your little search bar and pick which one you want to watch. So I think
remember
the
that
rest
this
of them
movie-
are for rent for like $3. So
I remember that this movie returns to some Native American stuff, which we didn't mention, but in the first movie, geographically, it's somewhere in the American Southwest, and there's parts of it that's out
Arizona,
near, Arizona, and it's
Chimney
there's
Rock,
like an
Arizona is where the first
and
one
we
is.
didn't we didn't mention that the little girl that was holding the soul was actually a Native American, and there's a whole scene there where she's on a reservation with her tribe and the elders, and it's an interesting meeting there because they're doing kind of, I mean, I'm going to use clumsy language here, and I hope I don't get anybody upset about it. I just mean that they're trying to do, it seemed kind of like maybe some sort of, and when I say Native American, I realize that's a big thing. It's not just one, there's many tribes, but I mean, a Native American, that specific tribe, sort of a version of an exorcism almost, because they're talking about flushing out the enemy ghost. And they're seen doing that during that, there's a part where, while they're trying to hold Gabriel off, that's going on, and at one point, Daggett says to them, "Finish it," which suggests what they're doing works. So it's an interesting meeting because we're in a universe where a lot of Christianity stuff, especially heavy on the Catholic stuff, is true. It's real, but it's also validating the spirituality or whatever, the effectiveness of that particular Native American tribe, because apparently what they're doing actually does have an effect on the soul. So it's kind of an interesting meeting there, because usually when you have movies that deal with religious stuff, they're almost always steeped in Christianity and the Catholicism, all that stuff about wars and angels and heavens and demons and stuff like that. And usually the whole point is like, well, in this universe, there's your true religion. The other religions are crap. I think this is kind of interesting because it's almost like a sort of validation, saying they are both valid. They are just different interpretations, sort of the same thing. But yeah, I thought that was kind of an interesting wrinkle to that movie. This movie doesn't get into that, but once again, there's some stuff on a reservation, I remember.
Well, there's several callbacks in the third movie to the first movie. Like you had brought up, the little girl from the first one comes back in the third one and actually talks to Daniel. Daniel is he's
Same actress too.
Yeah, same actress, and she's only done she's done the Prophecy 1, the Prophecy 3, and then one other movie. So the 2/3 of her filmography is the prophecy movies. So, but yeah, and then there's the diner scene from the first one with Amanda Plummer. Christopher Walken goes back in. They get the same actress to come back and play the waitress.
Right.
From the first one. She's in the third one. But which
it's like I don't imagine we'll meet again. She's like, suits me. Like little touches like that.
Yeah, well, that was the line from the first one, and then in the third one,
now they do meet again.
Yeah. Something about how's your friend, and he's she's a little under the weather, and of course at this point in the third one, Rachel's dead. So, but yeah, there's several callbacks to the first one, and like Jess had pointed out before, there's not too many characters that reprise their roles throughout this. Walken's one, the coroner's another. He's in all three of the movies. Same guy playing the coroner. And then I want to say her name's Maria or Mary. It's an M word. The little girl.
Character? Yeah, Mary, which is another kind of what I was saying. It's interesting. She's Native American, but she has that very biblical name in Mary.
Yeah. Which actually Eric Stoltz's character makes a reference to that being a very pretty name or making some sort of reference to Mary in the Bible. But the same girl who plays Mary in the first one comes back in the third one. So, I mean, and I think that is it for the first three movies. Those are the only characters that reprise their roles. Otherwise, everybody else has been replaced and dies off in the next movie. So, but no, Prophecy 3, like I said, it'd probably be a C+, B- for me, but it's still a really good. It's not really good movie. It's still a good movie. And it's at least worth a watch. Whereas I think the first two are really good to great movies. So, and probably the biggest downside to the third one is the final fight scene is not that great. It's real short. If you blink, you will miss it. So
he just basically impales him, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's not much of a struggle before that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess it kind of all depends on how you look at it too. I mean, like I said before, I love studying eschatology, and if you believe whether you're a Christian or not, I mean, the eschatology, the Christian eschatology says that when Jesus comes back, he will. Basically, he'll beat the Antichrist and the false prophet by speaking a word. So, I mean, how anticlimactic is that? I mean, So, I mean, it kind of it goes along with the same concept. It's just you expect more out of a movie than you would that. So,
does this movie have any flashbacks?
There's the initial flashback. Well, there's kind of initial flashback when Mary and Daniel meet, or just before Mary and Daniel meet,
because it features a pretty significant time jump.
Oh, there's a significant time jump between each movie.
Yeah,
because
it's a little confusing that Mary is the age she is. Shouldn't she be a lot older? But anyway.
Yeah. Well, remember at the end of 2, they jumped 5 years. From
I don't think I did remember that, but I know that this has an 18-year time jump.
Well, I know when from the time Gabriel gets beat by Valerie at the end of 2 to when Valerie puts Daniel on the bus and you see Gabriel as a homeless guy on the street, it's 5 years.
Yeah, I knew it was
And
something.
then-
I didn't know the thing, but I knew, yeah, he'd been
Yeah.
human for a while, and obviously the kid ages a bit. So yeah, I didn't know the exact number. Of
Which-
But also
Which
remember
is
too that
interesting because the first three movies are made within a 5-year time span. I think the actual
Yeah,
film.
Yeah.
that's what I mean. That's what I mean. Like the actress playing Mary hadn't aged that much, really. You know.
well, here's the funny part is that if you remember back to the second movie, when Valerie finds out she's pregnant, she had just slept with Daniel 2 days prior.
Yeah.
And she finds out that she's in her second trimester just a couple of days after she slept with him. So,
But I mean, you can accept that
That's-
because of what he is, right?
well, yeah, but I mean that could help explain some of the time jump.
The idea that they age quicker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say
Or
with something
mature
like
quicker,
this,
I
yeah,
don't
you
know,
could
considering
kind of
they
fill
age.
in the blanks with any of that sort of supernatural power.
I mean, it's another thing where, like, if you're going to biblical sources and things like that, like angels we know are more or less immortal, but like, you know, how do they age in any sort of way? It's a lot like when you see like vampire movies and stuff like that. It seems like the vampires do age and then they just stop. You know, it's like he was a kid when he was a vampire, but in a lot of them he still ages, and it's like, and now he looks like he's 35 for forever. Now, not all vampire movies do that. I'm just saying there's vampire movies that do that. Then there's other ones that make it very specific that they are frozen in time. They did that in the fucking Twilight movies, right? He's supposed to be like 17 for like 100 years, and he'll always be 17 or something like that. But they don't always do that. So they'll play fast and loose with things like that. And as I said, angels, if you're trying to go to the source on this, you're not going to get hard answers from something like the Bible. It's really going to explain how their appearances might change. You know, that's not in there. So, but anytime angels are depicted or drawn or something, it's just an artist's interpretation. It's like, here's the angel. You know.
Big T, I just want to say that the first movie, I don't think needs any cowbell. The second movie, which is probably how we should have rated these. Second movie, maybe
many
a little
cowbells?
bit. Third movie, maybe a little bit more. Fourth and fifth movies, we'll get to those here in just a minute. So
The thing about Christopher Walken is that he was pumping out movies like everything. Like, look at his career. He pumped out every kind of movie. Like, name a genre or, you know, subgenre, or even just like, I don't know, kind of a feel. Christopher Walken probably did at least one movie like that. He's got his toe over the, you know, prolific guy. He's been around a long time.
Yeah,
He's
which
done
is
a
kind
lot
of
of
amazing
movies.
because he's done some really high-profile movies and Academy Award movies,
Yes.
but yet did not hesitate early on in his career to do some straight-to-video movies and things. So
You know what movie of his I really like? I love him in King of New York. That movie is really great.
That's a good movie, yeah.
somebody
Yeah.
did mention that earlier.
which movie was
in the
that? I'm
chat.
sorry.
King of New
King
York,
of New York.
directed by Abel Ferrara. It's really cool. It's a gangster movie.
Yeah. Early 90s. I think it came out like the same year as Carlito's Way. I used to get them mixed up with each other, even though they're quite different.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
was trying to-
I really like, since we're touching on, I really like Walken in Suicide Kings, where he's also a gangster. He's like a
haven't seen
retired
that one.
gangster in that one.
That's the one where they,
A hard
got him tied to
recommend
the
for
chair.
Suicide Kings. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out.
This group of guys basically kidnap a retired gangster guy because they think they can get some money out of him, and there's a bit of a twist going on. I think it's a really cool.
This sounds familiar. Maybe I've just read about it. But yeah.
It's a really cool, underrated movie. What's his name? The comedian Tim. Tim, hold on. Oh, come on, you guys. He has the asshole song and everything. He did a show about firefighters.
Wasn't Dylan, was it?
Dennis Leary.
Dennis Leary. I said Tim.
Oh,
I was like,
Dennis Leary.
my mind went to Tim Leary. You know, Timothy Leary.
Oh, God.
Dennis
yeah.
Leary. Yeah. So Dennis Leary.
I'm
is
an
like
asshole. Yeah.
Yeah. So Dennis Leary is like Walken's like enforcer guy, and he's really cool in that too. It also has Johnny Galecki in a pretty funny role. He's sort of the comic relief in that movie. Yeah,
Nice.
that's a good. I think it's got one of the guys from Not Suicide. That's what I was just talking about. He's one of the guys from. Speaking of that era, God, I can't do anything anymore. Saints.
Boondock Saints.
Boondock Saints. Yeah, that he's in it. I think one of the two guys there. I always forget his name. He's one of those 3 name guys. But anyway, if you have not seen Suicide Kings, a big recommend. I think it's a pretty underrated. It's not great or anything, but I think it's a pretty underrated movie, pretty cool movie, and a good Christopher Walken role because he spends most of the movie. The whole point is he was a gangster, but now he's more or less retired, and he's very sort of friendly and nice and outgoing. But the longer they hold him, the more sort of threatening he becomes. It's good.
Very nice.
I think he's really intimidating in that movie.
Sean had said that earlier in the show. Mentioned King of New York. That's who I was looking for, Andrew.
Oh yeah.
But like Christopher Walken was great because he, at the same time, he did like leading man type roles, but he also did so many great like character actor roles. Like he was doing them at the same time. It wasn't like he was a guy that used to be a leading guy and now he just now he has to do character. Like,
taking the jobs, yeah.
Like there's a crappy movie that's not good. It's a Bruce Willis movie that I kind of defend anyway, called from around that time called something man. I don't know. Anyway, it's the plot of A Fistful of Dollars and Yojimbo used once again, only this time with like gangsters in Prohibition era in this town. Last Man Standing, and it's not good. And Bruce Willis is the main guy in it, and he has no emotion, and there's nothing. But Christopher Walken's there, and he's like one of the like Chicago gangsters, and he's this guy. I think he's called like Whisper, and he just speaks like this, and he's just so cool. He doesn't have a ton of screen time, but he's just so cool. So Christopher Walken just has just his fingerprints all over the place with so many cool, memorable things.
I've seen that movie one time.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's worth revisiting. It's a pretty bland, forgettable movie, honestly.
No, there's something in there that I remember very, very well, and that is how loud it is.
There's a lot of shooting.
Maybe it was just my copy of the DVD that I got, but it like anytime they were shooting guns, like it was fucking loud. It was like explosions, and
I mean, there's a lot of shooting in it.
I can handle an action movie, but I mean that was like they. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I know that I love shooting. I can't remember that. First time I saw that movie, I was in Mexico. And I was in my hotel, and it was just on, so I watched it. I was like, oh, Bruce Willis. I don't know this movie, so I watched it. I didn't know it at the time, but it's one of Bruce Willis's like most boring roles. Like the guy he plays has like zero. He has no personality. He's just like a blank slate guy. And it's the same plot, and that plot has been used again, even in the '90s, in an even worse movie. That Rutger Hauer was in, and it's like a sci-fi take on that damn plot, and that's Omega Doom, which is one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life, which is really saying something because I've seen a lot of fucking movies. But people aren't familiar with the original plot of Yojimbo, the Akira Kurosawa movie. It's always the same thing. It's about a drifter coming into some town that has like warring factions, and he plays both sides against each other to benefit himself. That's the thing, and it's been used over and over again. It was in Yojimbo, and then they did it in the Sergio Leone movie, in the Man with No Name trilogy movie.
Didn't they do that in Desert Heat with Van Damme? Yeah.
So that plot has been used a lot.
Okay.
Oh, but Omega Doom is the bottom of the barrel. Like it's just this cheap garbage sci-fi movie. They're all cyborgs fighting. Most of that movie, like it feels, I mean, it's an exaggeration, but my memory of that movie is like 90% of it is people standing in doorways, like looking at each other, like in the small, like waiting for something to happen. Because the whole point is they're trying to build tensions. Like at any second, they're going to start fighting. And it's just shot after shot of the various factions in doorways looking at the street. Because it's, it was awful. Terrible movie. Poor Rutger Hauer.
A little side note on what you said something about you had seen that in Mexico. Just a funny little thing. First night I was in New Mexico.
There's a new
over 11 years ago. First night I'm in New Mexico. I'm crashing at my dad's house, and I go to lay down, and he shows me where the remote is and everything. So I turn on the TV because I can't sleep without the TV on, and I find the first movie channel I can find, and they're playing Young Guns. So the first one. So I'm in New Mexico, just outside of Lincoln County, and
it's a state in the United States. I didn't know if you were being serious or not, Cole.
About what?
That there's a New Mexico.
Yeah, that was a joke.
Okay. I figured it was, but I mean, you're from.
Hey, there's
Canada,
people. There's
different
people
country.
here in the U.S. who think that New Mexico is part of Mexico. They don't realize that it is a state. So
Yeah,
when we went down there, we were told to be careful of El Chapo. So,
but I can keep track of them. There's too many. 50 is way too many. You should consider condensing and maybe combining some. But I know them all. I'm good at geography.
Well,
that's great. I don't even know them all. Shit.
Well, I know them all.
I mean, yeah.
Like if you were to name one, I could be like, yeah, that's a state. But if you were to ask me to name them all, I couldn't do it.
I mean, I can't rhyme them right off, but I get through them. But I just mean, what's funny is like I always think about the states that like I would name last. Now they jump to mind first. So it's like, what would be like the last state? Like fucking Delaware. Like Delaware has no identity, right? There's nothing that distinguishes Delaware. It's probably the last state I'd think of. But now because of that, it has no identity. Offense to everybody from Delaware, I suppose. And I've been through Delaware. It's not like I haven't been there. But I feel like that's like the last one. It's like Rhode Island's really small. Wyoming has more cows than people. These all feel like ones that I wouldn't think of. But because I think that, it's the reverse. They're
now the first one.
I named them before like California or New York or something.
I think Wayne Campbell said it best. Hi, I'm in Delaware.
Hello.
There you go.
I mean, Delaware.
I'm not saying it's the worst state at all.
No,
I'm not ranking states. How would I know, right?
Every state, every
memorable
country has something. I've always said this has its negatives and has something wonderful to offer. So, we all have our stereotypes.
Well, what's funny is Jess and I are in Iowa, and first thing everybody says when they think of Iowa is, "Oh, that's all you guys have is corn." And then I'll be watching something and they'll make reference to Nebraska and how, they've got all this corn. And I'm like, fuck you, we're Iowa. We've got all the corn. So
don't steal our corn identity.
There you go.
On one hand,
there is a lot of corn.
I want to be known for corn, but on the other hand, that's ours, motherfucker. Back off.
And Bobby, welcome to the Horror Rumble in our chat. Not
Bobby,
sure if
there is a line in the Weird Al Yankovic song called "I'll Sue Ya," which is a song about a guy that's crazy and sues people over everything, where he said he sued Colorado because he thinks it looks too much like Wyoming.
That's right. Oh, sorry.
All right, Jess. I'm going to try and make this as painless as possible. Okay.
Are we moving on?
We're going to move on, but I want you to pull up both posters. Not obviously not at the same time, but there's 4.
You got the Prophecy Uprising
and 5.
The Prophecy Forsaken.
Okay. This is basically one big movie.
Yeah,
like we were talking about earlier, why make a 3-hour movie when you can make 2 hour-and-a-half movies? This is basically that.
Or just not at all.
No. Well, see, the thing is that both these movies were released in the same year.
Yeah.
Are we? Let's start it then.
Okay.
The Prophecy Uprising, Part 4.
I remember almost nothing from this.
I'll do you one better, Cole.
Yeah.
I haven't seen these, in all honesty. I didn't do my homework. I know I'm a host.
I'm not entirely sure I've seen the other one in its entirety. I think maybe I've only seen a scene or two.
Jess will be spending all next week in room 212.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's
But basically, we were talking about doing this as the franchise for this month, or the show for this month. And he was like, and I was thinking in my head, oh, okay, yeah, I like the Prophecy films, all right, those 3 movies. And he's like, there's 5. And I was, what?
I mean, yeah.
And we got to discussing and of course I did a little bit of research. And to me, and Kory's going to correct me and tell me that I'm wrong, like from what I could see, this reminded me of the Return of the Living Dead franchise, to where the first trilogy of movies is pretty solid, and then they had these two filmed back to back in like 2005, same year, I think.
Yep.
And they were not good. And
How
that's what I
appropriate that
saw.
it has Doug Bradley in there.
I was going to bring that up. That's probably like one of the positives. Again, they somehow managed these.
And then it's a very Hellraiser thing to do, to release two movies in the same year, because they did that also.
Yeah.
The redeeming quality of these movies is they both have Kory Warher. That's the redeeming qualities.
Ah, good. You're a fan of her?
Well, of course I am.
She was a remote on MTV's Remote Control. I'm now just seeing.
She was in the movie Thinner.
She's in Thinner. She's in a lot of
I love that movie.
movies of the 90s.
She was
great.
Didn't she play the daughter or the granddaughter of the old man in Thinner?
Yeah, she's the granddaughter. Yeah,
the gypsy.
Yeah, so she's the one that pulls up her skirt and
yes,
she was good.
That hottie.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I watch anything.
She's been in some things I've seen, but I don't remember her.
Yeah, she's also in Hellraiser Deader, The Hitcher 2.
Yep.
The Hitcher 2, another sequel I wish never ever happened.
Yeah.
Because I love the first one. That's one of my favorites. Speaking of Rutger Hauer, I love The Hitcher. It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
Good one.
There's another actor in this movie, and he makes real brief cameos in both these movies. And it's Jason London.
Jason London. See, I know Jason London
from Dazed and Confused.
Yeah, I'm sad to say, for me,
like,
the first thing I think of Jason London is
I know Jason London. I loved Dazed and Confused. Pink.
Okay.
I think of the Rage.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The Rage Carry 2. I love that movie. So that's right.
That one I did see in the theater, and it always had a big effect on me.
Wow. I wish I could have saw it in theaters. That's dope.
I don't think it was bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun
movie. I like it a lot.
He plays the character Simon.
Okay.
Now, if you remember back to the first one, Simon dies.
So again, recasting, and just like Lucifer, they recast in this too. I'm reading.
Yes, but this is, and Jess and I were having this discussion earlier today. I don't think that these were supposed to be direct sequels. I think this was supposed to be some sort of a reboot,
which usually is almost always a bad idea,
because there is no mention of the war that had taken place before either one. Gabriel is not mentioned. Michael's not mentioned. None of the events in the first three movies are mentioned. Now, there are certain things that the angels do in 4 and 5 that are done in the first three movies, like in the third one, Vincent Spano, when he wants to see who Daniel, if he wants to see, or when he wanted to see what Daniel was doing in Brad Dourif's apartment, he climbs on to this little table or whatever, leans over and licks Brad Dourif's eye, and he can see what happened while Daniel was in the apartment. There's that, and I think 4.
You are not selling these movies to me.
I haven't even gotten to the story yet. I'm just telling you that
it's a weird story.
This is not this. I don't believe these are supposed to be direct sequels to the first 3.
Then stuff them in a sack.
But the story is
there's still name recognition, right? There's still name recognition, so they just stick the prophecy onto it.
And on a rare occasion, that can work to where you don't need to follow the previous movies; those stories are done, but you can still kind of continue the the essence of it.
Well, I mean, it is about angels and stuff. So
yeah, the spirit of it, if you will. But this does not sound good. Again, and then watching the trailers to them. They look about, like I said, like those Return of the Living Dead sequels.
They're pretty cheap.
Necropolis. They're cheap.
Yeah, these are
uninteresting.
These are very
no thanks.
Very cheap. There's almost, I don't think there's any real special effects or anything in this. Which I don't really recall too many special effects in the first 3 outside of like Gabriel climbing out of hell, stuff like that. But I mean, this one here, there's a scene in part 5 towards the beginning where, and he in part 5, what's his name, Jason Scott Lee.
Oh man,
Yeah, he's in part 5 with Tony Todd, and he shoots himself in the head, but there's no, like, you don't see, I don't recall seeing any blood. I don't, like, there's never a shot of a gunshot wound through the back of his head, nothing. Whereas in the first 3 movies, when somebody got shot, you would see the bullet holes. So there's later on in 5, Lee's wearing a beanie and he's got fluid running down his face. And he's at a bar and the bartender asks or tells him, you know, hey, you got something dripping off your face. And he goes, yeah, I think that's what you'd call cranial fluid. So it's like the extent of the special effects in these 2 movies. I mean, I'm not saying these are on par with the first 3, but they're not totally unwatchable.
Sound like
yes, they
triple
are
bogeys.
Yes, they are. They are made cheaper, and you can tell because both movies take place in Romania.
Oh, another one of those too, to where I really shouldn't be talking trash because I haven't seen anything beyond the trailers and reading a little synopsis about them. So I really shouldn't make a true opinion.
I mean, my memory of it is not strong, but I mean, I definitely don't have anything positive that I remember. I think it's interesting that Belial or whoever's in it, because finally we do get a demon from religious texts. In this, it's understood that Belial is a former angel that fell with Lucifer. That's not confirmed in anything, although I think the Dead Sea Scrolls suggest that's what he was. But I don't know where people stand on the Dead Sea Scrolls nowadays. I think some people think they're a hoax, so I don't know. But I do think it's interesting that finally we get a demon to go with Satan.
And this demon that he just mentioned does the whole Jason Voorhees thing from
possessing people.
Jason Goes to Hell. He's like in this one, I think he's like a bat or something.
Yeah.
He's some sort of a flying rodent, and whereas Jason
kills people and takes
slug
over their form or whatever, yeah.
But it does the same thing. But the story is that and this is another slight connection to the first movie, was that in the first movie there was a Bible found on the first angel that Simon kills. What are you laughing at, Jess? You're muted, bud.
Just me and Cole.
Okay, fine.
Sorry. I'm trying to entertain ourselves here while we're listening to this. So go on.
Anyway, so there was this Bible that was found on him, and they end up Thomas Daggert is looking through this Bible, and he realizes that there's a 23rd chapter of Revelations in this Bible. But there is no 23rd chapter of Revelation.
Yeah, right.
Okay. That's the big thing in the first movie. In this one, there's a book called the Lexicon where there's a 23rd chapter of Revelation, but it's still being written.
Yeah, it's like it writes itself.
Yeah, it writes
or
itself.
Something. Yeah.
So that's the fact that there's a 23rd chapter in the book of Revelation is like the only connection between the first movie and these two.
I know I've seen other movies that have that, but I am blanking on what they could be. I'm sure I've seen other movies that had like the exact same thing, that there was a hidden extra other chapter to Revelation, but I can't think of it. I'm sure I've seen that before.
So the fourth movie is all about the angels are trying to get a hold of this book, and the devil is actually playing, the good guy in this, because, and you'll find out later why, but he's trying to help the main character, Allison, indirectly or directly through her brother that she doesn't know she has. So it's how do I put this? It's the brother is a detective who had turned his parents in for being enemies of the state, and their parents were killed. So the little girl was sent off and adopted out, and the little boy, I believe, ended up in an orphanage or something. But anyway, why are we doing this, Jess? I think you're muted, bud.
I didn't.
I thought you were
necessarily
saying
think
something.
I did that. I did not do that on purpose. I don't know how that what happened there. I really don't.
Anyway,
I
so
was typing
All
over
falling
here.
apart.
so the
These
fourth
damn
movie,
movies.
the fourth movie is just all about how they're trying to get a hold of this book, and Allison's got the book, and so they're trying to get the book from her, which segues into the fifth movie, which is the reason they're trying to get the book is the last page in the book gives the name of the Antichrist. So
Finally, something kind of connected to Christ, although.
yeah, which is what I was saying before. You know, that you'll find these movies that use phrases like Antichrist, but Jesus is nowhere in this as a character or outside character. So anyway, the whole reason they want to know the name of the Antichrist is so that some of the angels want to go and kill him, so this way humans cannot get into heaven. Because if they don't kill him, then he'll rise to power, and you will have Armageddon and the apocalypse, and God will win, which means that people will get into heaven. And the whole reason Lucifer is trying to help Allison is because whoever doesn't get into heaven goes to hell and becomes property of Lucifer. So that's why he's playing the good guy in these two movies. Does that change anybody's mind?
Like I said, it's not
probably
like
not. But
it's a lot like the third one too. I think the third one had an interesting sort of plot, but it doesn't come together well.
Honestly, like, it does not sound interesting, but because of the era it's from, I think there's probably things about it I will like. It's particularly Carrie Warher, so I definitely plan to rewatch them.
oh, there's definitely
I don't
there's like I said, I don't think they're unwatchable, but
I like straight to video movies from this era. Like I have fun with them. So, but yeah, I don't expect it to be of the caliber of the original trilogy.
It is not. But hey,
Well, I mean,
Tony Todd's a bad guy in the next one, which
There
yeah,
again,
Tony Todd is
on paper,
You know, I don't even know if like I necessarily pop for Tony Todd. Like I like Tony Todd, but I don't know if he's like a positive for me. Like, because I like him in the Hatchet movies, to bring this up again, but he's pretty campy in those movies. I don't know if he's like if he's an elevator of something. You know, I don't know if I would. You know what I mean?
he is for me, although it doesn't. I'll say it doesn't matter here. Normally, he is an elevator for me. I mean,
Yeah.
You've got a pretty good knowledge of actors because a lot of these people you're pointing out, like I never heard of them.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I watch a lot of straight to video stuff, so these people are all over these movies and stuff. So there's
I mean, some of them I've seen, but I just don't recall them. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Tony Todd as a villain on paper sounds pretty good because that's kind of I think what his wheelhouse really is. But it really
I
does
like
not
it.
matter in this movie. He plays a character called Stark, and he sucks.
I'll let-
if
you know
that tells you
speaking of-
anything about the
Speaking of him as a villain,
inventiveness or the creativity of the writers, they couldn't come up with an actual angel name for him, so they called him Stark. There's one reference in the movie where I think it's Jason Scott Lee says that his name is Stark, and he doubts that's his actual name.
Because we couldn't think of anything better.
wow, that's hilarious. Wow.
And I mean, I don't know where people fall on Jason Scott Lee, but he's wasted in this movie because he doesn't get to do any of the things that Jason Scott Lee is good at, really.
Yeah, there's no
he's
martial
just
arts
kind
in
of
this movie. But
he's
there
just
was
kind of like mopey in this movie that I remember. He's got kind of a weird attitude. he's trying to, he's like a tough, troubled guy type thing. But again, in a
He
movie
was-
that's
I
not
think he
too
was supposed
well
to be an
written, you can't do
assassin.
much with that. Yeah, he was like, what was he? He was an assassin. Was he still active as an assassin, or was he a former assassin? It's hard for me to remember now. Maybe it doesn't even
I
matter.
think he was a former assassin, and
Yeah.
but he basically, I think he was supposed to. He ends up being like we had before with Brittany Murphy and Adam Goldberg and Amanda
Yeah.
Plummer, that undead, lackey for the main bad guy.
How does she
So-
even meet him? I don't remember that. Like, how does Allison meet him? Do you remember that?
Oh, he breaks into her apartment and has a gun to the back of her head because he's supposed to kill her.
Oh, he's supposed to kill her.
Yeah,
God, you'd think I'd remember that.
and he has her sitting in this chair, and they start having a discussion, and he's like, I don't know why, but there's something different about you, and not that it's mattered before, but I'm supposed to kill you, and I'm not going to. And he actually starts helping her. So there is a funny scene where he walks into his girlfriend or ex-girlfriend's apartment, and she's fucking another guy, and she wants to know who his new whore is. So so Jamie, if your husband likes boobies, there's a great shot of some boobies in that scene there.
Yeah, I don't remember that either. Jeez. Yeah, I think I've only seen pieces of the movie. Like, I don't think it's my memory is pieces. I think literally that's what I saw. I think there are scenes that I did not see. That's what I'm thinking. It's hard to remember the circumstances of how I watched it, too. Kind of blanking on that. No.
Like I said, these are they're not on par with even part 3. I mean, if part
Did
3
you-
is the worst one of the
And
original
part 3
3,
is pretty, yeah.
Yeah.
they're not on
Did
par
you
with
s-
3, but I don't think that they're unwatchable.
Funny about this movie is if you read about it here, like I'm reading like the plot synopsis and stuff, like the stakes are ridiculous compared. Like the other movies, the stakes are always kind of high. The stakes here are just like humanity will be obliterated and heaven will be overrun by hell. Like they really raise the stakes for what it's worth. I mean, it doesn't really work out, but they try.
Well, the ending to this movie is, I'll let you guys, if you want to watch it. I don't want to ruin too much. I've already ruined enough, but it's not what you would expect. So
I
would
probably
suggest
won't
giving it
ever
a
watch
watch.
these, but you did say there was a good deal on the blue. You can get all 5 of these movies for like $10.
I kind of really want to watch it now because I want to see if what I remember lines up with it. Because
Come on, Cole, you just want to see those boobies, don't you?
Well, there's a selling point for sure.
We know Jamie loves showing her husband new boobies, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
New boobs? What are new boobs?
I
Oh,
guess
like-
just on screen.
Boobs
yeah,
he's
like,
never seen.
hey, you haven't seen these
Oh.
boobs before, honey.
That's interesting. I have no comment on people's relation. That is your business.
It was shared. It's public information, I guess.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have put it up otherwise. You did say earlier, I don't know, I was kind of blanked out the last little bit on these movies, Kory. But
Did you say, Jess, that you worked at a video store, or you were just regularly a visitor like everyone
Oh,
else?
he worked at a
Both.
video store.
but I
Okay.
yeah,
So you,
I-
you have no recollection of these on the shelves in the 2000s?
not at that. This was late 90s that I worked at a video store
Okay,
in its heyday. I have no recollection of these movies whatsoever.
Do you remember renting video game systems in the 90s?
I do because yeah,
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
we
that.
were talking about this on I can't remember.
I
Jay's
rented a
channel, maybe?
PS2 before I bought one. I also rented a Dreamcast back in the day.
Yeah, I rented
Yeah.
a Dreamcast 2. Is awesome.
I never
own a
rented a
Dreamcast
Dreamcast.
now.
I bought a modded one.
Oh yeah, I've got a Dreamcast.
For Japanese games?
Yes,
Hell yeah.
which were fucked up because I couldn't read them, so I was just pressing
Yeah.
buttons until I got into the game.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, this-
I inherited a bunch of
the
PAL
list
editions
says-
that don't play.
the list
I've got
says
like
this is a
5
baseball
PAL
game.
games.
Well, the map says we're fucked. So.
But I do actually have some working games for my Dreamcast. I wish I could get more, but expensive.
Oh yeah, they're so pricey.
Who'd you say came back in this one? It's played by also a different person. Oh, and he was dead in the
The
first
character,
one. Sam,
the character,
right?
Simon.
Simon.
Yeah.
Simon.
Simon's Jason London, right?
Yeah, and he
I knew it started with
basically
an
is
S,
like
though.
he looks like an apparition, but I mean, when angels die, they're not ghosts; they're just
Yeah, he doesn't physically play it. It's like he just voices it.
yeah.
I think.
Which I'm
Right.
sure that's all they could really afford with the budget that they had, but
Starring Jason London as a cheap effect.
basically, yes.
Jamie wants to know if that's Lady Gaga, Andrew.
Yes.
Nice.
I thought that was a corpse.
So, you guys, wow. You guys had more to talk about these last two movies than I expected. I really, seriously. I thought Kory might have been the only one talking about these last two. So
I mean, I
I'm
don't
glad.
know anything concrete. It's just a bunch of sort of hazy, half-remembered. It's mostly me saying, "Did this happen?" And plus, I am reading the plot summary here to sort of help jog
Yeah.
my memory. and
Yeah, a
stuff
lot
like
of this was a fresher for me too. So that's
That's okay. I'm not doing that at all either.
But I'm thinking I never saw this movie in its entirety. I'm thinking I saw part of it. Maybe I've started watching it and stopped, or I came into it late. I am not sure.
Well,
Well, we probably had more fun discussing these than actually watching them. I'm gonna.
oh, come
Now,
on.
if there's anything I can reiterate, it's how much I really love the first one. It's one of my go-to movies, one of my favorite movies of the 90s. It is my favorite Christopher Walken performance, and he's got lots of great ones. I don't know. It's a movie I quote a lot. But I don't know. I've always just really enjoyed it.
Would you say then, Kory, you're a fan of this franchise as a whole? Like this is a solid
As a
franchise for
whole,
you?
yeah.
Solid.
More so the first three, yes. But like I said, 4 and 5 are not unwatchable. You can watch them and get some enjoyment out of them, whether it's new boobies or just
But yeah, that's always enough for me. Yeah.
trying to enjoy the concept that they were going for is kind of interesting to me. So
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm a big fan of eschatology. I love watching documentaries on end times and different theories on it. And so even though I know that, the stories in these movies are not technically biblical eschatology, it's still kind of cool to me because of what it deals with. So
Do you like the Left Behind movies?
not so much because I don't subscribe to that theory,
Right. Yeah.
but
Those movies are just, I don't know.
there's
They're
a
just
particular
propaganda,
eschatological
really. They're
theory
just like-
I do subscribe to, but it's you there's only a couple of different people that actually discuss it, and I think it makes the most sense. So
Not to go on to that, but I actually
No.
like a movie of that time called Tribulation. It wasn't part of the Left Behind series, but it was
I know
in
it-
that.
I think I've seen that one.
Howie
Yeah,
Mandel's in it. Margot Kidder.
Mr. T's in one of them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I actually have all of them. So
Oh, nice.
Anyway, any final thoughts on this entire franchise? Spit it out now.
Well, I'm not a fan. It's like I want to be a fan of the franchise, but I just can't do it. But I'm a fan of like parts of it for sure, and I have a lot of love for the first. I can't be a fan of the franchise of a whole. I'm not one of those people that's like, well, I'm always open to a new time. No, I believe in quality over quantity, and I get really annoyed. And I am the type of person, I don't think bad sequels ruin the original, but I do feel like they diminish them. I do. I wish there were no other Jurassic Parks. I wish there were no other The Crows. Honestly, I wish I could wipe those sequels from existence because I do feel like they lessen the impact of the good movie. And The Prophecy, I'm a little more flexible with because The Prophecy is a movie I really love, but I know it's not like a great, fantastic movie in the grand scheme of things. So I can be a little easier on it. I don't need to wipe these from existence necessarily to feel better about myself, but I can't like it as a whole as a franchise. I want to, but I can't. But I really adore the first movie, and I'll always enjoy it. And I like to talk about it. So
Nice. Andrew, final thoughts on the franchise?
I'm invigorated. I'm reinvigorated, just like some of the people in the chat. I'm excited to rewatch them because it's been a long time. This was very fun to reminisce about them and stuff.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, you guys, you both have made this very fun. I appreciate you coming on. I was kind of going to save this for the end, but Cole, I've been trying to get you.
Yeah, I'm
we've been
glad
trying
that-
to work it out, getting you on the
I know.
channel for a while now. So I'm glad we
I know.
finally made it happen, and hopefully you'll be back.
People must think like I'm busy. I'm not busy. This is bad luck. People think I don't have a busy life. I'm not one of those people. It's like, oh, things are so crazy and frantic. Not usually. I mean, things happen to everybody, but most of the time it's just weird bad luck or something like that. So I'm glad, that things aligned to do that. As far as, I don't know, people watching, you must be fans of Jess. So if you're big fans of Jess and you can't get enough of Jess, you can see a bit of him on my channel too. We've done some live commentaries for some animated films, and we're going to continue that because we both enjoy discussing animation, the medium, and the history, and we've got more coming. So if anybody is interested in getting a bit more Jess, you can check out on my channel too.
Oh, save it, Cole. No, it's wonderful. You got to go check out his channel. There's other things aside from me on there, much more. Some great commentaries.
Did you mention, Cole? Did you and Jade do a discussion on the first movie at all?
We did. It wasn't a discussion. It was just a live commentary, but we did. So I'm not sure if that's my channel or Jay's. I'll have to double check. I think it's mine because I'm the one who picked it. So I think it's mine. So maybe about 2 years ago or so, we did a live commentary on it. So I guess you can get weird unfiltered babble from me while that movie's playing, I think. I'm sure I did that with Jay. I hope I did that with Jay because I've done like solo ones too, which don't have much redeeming value, but I do them to amuse myself. But yeah, I'll have to double check on that if that's on my channel, if that's actually with Jay. But yeah, that's a good pull. I at least did do a live commentary, hopefully with somebody.
Well,
just because it's a movie I
don't know you. I know some of the people here definitely know who you are, Cole. So they're not all here just for the regulars.
I'm on your channel, so I'm trying to appeal to your fans.
Your channels will be in the links down in the description.
Yeah.
Within the next.
My channel's not nearly as active as I'd like it to be, so it's kind of sporadic when things pop up. But
quality.
Jay and I have had some. That's true. That is true. And Jay and I have also had bad luck in that we have not gotten very much Movie Discussion Pocket Dimension episodes up in the last 6 months, and I'm hoping we can turn that around because that is a show I really do believe in and think it's good. So hopefully, I can get that back. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So hopefully we can get that back on track. It's been a little off track lately, but people are wondering if we're on a hiatus or something. No, it's just been sort of thing. I'm not going to go into it, but Jay himself, he's kind of had a hell of a month. He's had some, personal stuff and family stuff going on, so he's all right though. So we'll persevere.
Both of those channel links will be down below soon. Maybe not right exactly after this live stream ends, but I'll have them up in less than a day in the description.
I do want to give something different than what Jess said, and that is instead of quality over quantity, great concept over quality.
There is merit to that. I'm not going to just dismiss that.
I'm just teasing. Big T says he remembers us guys did a Killer Robin Hood episode for the Disney animated movie. Well, thanks for watching that, Big T.
Yeah, that's right. We did do that.
That was a lot of fun. I mean, they've all been fun. So that's our series of animated films. Like you said, should keep going. We have a blast.
Yeah. Looking back here, yes, I did have Jay with me for the Prophecy.
Jamie.
It's from about 2 years ago, so I don't know what the hell we did. Or, I mean, I'm pretty sure even though a lot of our live commentaries, because they're just for fun, they're more loose. Since I like that movie so much, we probably stayed on topic a lot just because I liked it. So because I know sometimes we do ones we kind of veer off.
Just out of curiosity, what were Jay's thoughts on the Prophecy? Can you remember back to?
Yeah, see, I know he liked it. I don't think he felt as strongly about it as you or I do, but I know he definitely liked it for sure.
The first one maybe a little bit, or his thoughts have changed. Maybe I'm kind of.
But I mean, honestly, I think he's more familiar. I think he watched all the sequels too. I think he probably has a better recall of the later sequels than I do. So I mean, if he was here, he probably could have been more in depth on some of the stuff about the sequels that I could not only just touch on. So I believe that. Because Jay's another guy, kind of like you said, like he knows a lot about like straight to video movies and things like that. He digs into those. So
He does, but he has said to me, unless he was just trying to avoid being on the show, that he is not a fan of this whole franchise of prophecy movies. So he might enjoy the first.
I think
one.
that's true. Because like I said, what I do remember is while he was fine with the first one, I don't think he had like a lot of enthusiasm and love for it like I do. So that's probably fair. I don't know. I don't know what people think when I say with a straight face that it's like my favorite Christopher Walken performance. And they're like, "You're kidding, right?"
Well,
No,
that was my
he's
first
awesome
reaction.
in these movies.
because I mean, I've seen many movies he's in, including some very serious movies like I don't know, The Deer Hunter or whatever, and he's good in those too. I mean, Christopher Walken's like a lot of actors of a certain generation, especially once you found out he could do comedic stuff. Is that over time they almost become parodies of themselves.
Yeah.
But you know, there was a time where he was hitting it on all cylinders. I don't know what the expression is, but you know what I mean.
I think you got it.
And Andrew, always nice to have you back on the show. Thanks for coming here. It's last minute notice as well, and
Oh yeah, I
hanging out
appreciate
with
it. I
us.
love jamming with you guys. So let me know what you plan to do next, and I'll prepare with some homework. You know.
Heck
Well,
yeah,
do you
brother.
want do you want
Yeah,
to
me
tell
too.
everybody what we're doing next month?
Oh, you already know.
Oh, we know.
Go
I'm
ahead.
excited.
You can go ahead and tell them. Just want to plug. Do you have anything coming up on your channel? Hey, isn't that Devon Graham? Which, of course, again, link will be in the description.
Nothing. I'm planning. You know, I'll have haul videos. Of course, that's usually what I'm doing. So there'll certainly be something this week for sure.
Excellent.
Cool.
Well, all right, Kory. What do we got coming up on the Horror Rumble next month?
year on
Next
the Horror
year.
Rumble, we will be
Oh my God.
debuting something new for us. It will be called the Wheel of Horror, where we will have several different topics, and each entrant will get a chance to spin the wheel and get to discuss whatever that wheel lands on. So it should be fun.
Will there be a real physical wheel you spin?
Well, a digital one on the screen.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. No, as long as there's some form of wheel, I'm sold.
Yes, but
And
there will
basically,
be.
who's ever joining, I think we talked about. We'll ask them if they want to before we set it up. Put one thing or one movie that they'd like to discuss on that wheel. So should
Cool.
be fun. And
Thank you very much,
is right.
Jamie.
Yes.
And I hope you and I can collaborate some more too, because Jamie and I had some grand plans that didn't come together this year after we'd done something. So hopefully she and I can do some stuff going forward.
Excellent. Anything else, Kory, I'm missing?
Look for us on everybody else's channels for the next couple of weeks until our next Horror Rumble, or always look out for an open bar.
We might get
You
one
never
next
know.
month.
You never know if we'll debut something else new, because I'm always got something in my brain cooking. So
They might, yeah.
you never know.
Of course, it's again, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, first night of Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah. And if you haven't yet, go check out our previous episodes, trip to Scarefest with a lot of the community, and more importantly, most recently, the Cable Channel 11 presents A Christmas Carol with a lot of members of the community playing the parts. Check it out here on
that sounds really cool.
Cable Channel 11.
Just skip past my part.
No,
Oh,
it was just a lot.
It's
a lot of fun.
You won't miss nothing.
It's no Alistair Sim or George C. Scott version.
That's my definitive Scrooge. Oh, I don't like George C. Scott, and I don't like that version.
Alistair Sim is probably my favorite.
He's my favorite.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I mostly don't dislike. There's a lot of versions of Christmas Carol. I actually dislike the '84 one.
Well, alrighty. Thanks for watching, everyone. And we'll see you next time.